What is happening out there, rotoscouts baseball fans? Welcome to the Wednesday show, gang. Happy hump day. Little bit of a delayed start. Gotta keep the anticipation bubbling up, you know. It's called showmanship, people. Hopefully everybody's doing pretty well out there. Looks like we've got a little bit of a crew in here already. 10 people hanging out. We had some pretty nice viewer numbers yesterday. Keep spreading that word. Tell people, tell your friends. Doing this every single day. Love seeing the crowd tick up, those likes, the subscriptions, all that good stuff. Got Matthew Tomlinson here, Stephen B's here, Colin Sutherland, Mamba's here. Colin saying, thanks for the projections. Pretty surprised, enthused at having two top fives within a week of each other. That's pretty awesome, buddy. Mamba's here. So please chat, nobody bring up BVP touting that's happening today. Is there more BVP going on today? I know Soler ended up coming through, but come on. That was just silly. Mamba in Discord saying, I'm never wrong about my Phillies. If Castellanos bats clean up today, you'll see. Thanks again for help on Turner. You're looking at your team sometimes clouds your judgment. Not sure, is Castellanos going to succeed if he's hitting cleanup? Is that what you're saying? Just taking a quick look up in the Discord. We had our guy Kevin CashApp with the rotoscouts logo on his results. Take down a 50 and looks like came pretty close to winning the tournament. But a little $50 winner on DK, and then a couple biggies. We had our guy Woody C pop for $2,500 and a third place finish on DraftKings. Looks like a Grayson Rodriguez, Nathan Eovaldi lineup. Philly stack and a Rangers stack. Looks like the bulk of it. Pretty solid lineup there. And then our guy Logan Grew. 10K. Took down first place. $10,000 winner on DraftKings. Looks like a Grayson Rodriguez, Mitch Spence with the Dodgers and the Athletics. Picked up a huge performance at the end of the night there. Nothing like a little late night hammer. So congrats to all the winners out there. Pretty solid night by the Discord. Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your... Go. Colin says, oh yeah, that's me, Kevin CashApp. Yeah, I always mix up who's who with as far as the names, especially when your name doesn't match your actual name. So apologies for that, but congratulations, buddy. So let's get into this slate. Guess what? It's the same as it was. Whoops. We got this shrunk down. I was just updating some projections on the site a couple minutes ago for the lineups that we had. That's why we showed up late. But same slate of games. Usually we get, one or two move to the afternoon, a couple others jump into the night, or it's shorter, it's longer, one or the other. We're coming right back with 11 games again, and I believe that it's the exact same slate of games. I don't think any changed. So that'll be fun. We could hear a lot of the same things about some of these hitters. Maybe it'll pick up the speed a little bit because I can say, we just talked about this yesterday, blah, blah, blah. We'll see. Doesn't tend to happen. Mamba, congratulations. Picked up $2,500 with locking in Turner and fading the rest of the Phillies. Nice. Little glass bottle Sprite going on. So that Reds and Yankees game up at the top of the board. Andrew Abbott against Carlos Rodon. 8.5 runs in that one. 3.70 implied total on the Reds side. 4.90 on the Yankees side. Feels like another day where the Reds are just being a little bit underappreciated for their talent for the ballpark. Facing a lefty, I really got no issues with considering the Reds. Potentially again a little bit higher. We saw it come through a little bit yesterday. Ellie had a big day. He tripled. He had a 2-run home run. Even giving it another half run doesn't get him over 4. Seems like another underrated spot playing in Yankee Stadium on, it's not a ridiculous July day. It's like 82 degrees here on July 3rd today, but it's a gettable spot against a, medium strength version of Carlos Rodon, who's had 3 bad games in a row, 5 earned runs, 7 earned runs, and 8 earned runs. Hasn't really had his premium strikeout stuff in a lot of spots this year. It's been not pretty gettable, but more gettable. Overall, we'll look at them, but I think the Reds are getting underappreciated there. The Yanks getting a very healthy total against a pretty gettable Andrew Abbott in Yankee Stadium. Love the upside for some of the righty bats there, plus some of the big lefties. So could be a good day to look at the Yankees again. Astros and the Blue Jays, it's another day of both those teams getting medium-sized totals. Yusei Kikuchi, who is reverted back to the kind of bad/gettable version of Yusei Kikuchi. He's going for the Blue Jays, pushing a 4.33 implied total toward the Astros, with Houston showing some quality through that lineup. And then Ronel Blanco, who we continue to not really believe in, and he continues to get away with murder on the mound because he is just outperforming his actual stuff. We've talked about this a number of times. And then you look at results like last time out, 5 2/3, struck out 5, walked 3, gave up 3 home runs, 6 runs total, but only 3 of them were earned on 6 hits. So when I say getting away with it, he's like that game especially really got away with something there. That could have been way, way worse. I think he's a gettable pitcher, but at the same time, he has been getting away with it and making it work. Just a low strikeout opponent in the Blue Jays. They're showing some quality. They've got some really interesting bats like Spencer Horwitz in that lineup now, he's been on base literally every time he's taken the field this season, at least on base once, which is it's a really interesting player for a guy who that's his reputation, is just a guy who gets on base, creates runs, causes havoc. He hit his 3rd home run yesterday. He's known for, wow, if he only had power, we'd have a hell of a player on our hands. He's delivered a couple of home runs early. He's hitting the ball pretty hard in the show. He had 2 balls yesterday over 100 miles an hour, so kind of interesting. Scooped him up in the Dynasty draft, in the minor league draft in the Dynasty League, because has not achieved rookie status yet, or it's not broken rookie status yet, short of 150 at-bats. That's our threshold. You can only draft guys in the rookie draft that are actual rookie status, and he's got it. So that's been my focus, like I said yesterday. I've been pretty much exclusively drafting guys that can help me now. So I got Ben Rice. I picked up Cade Povich, the big starter from the Orioles. I took David Festa, who's pitching tonight for the Twins, who's a top 100 prospect, who's already pitching in the show. I took Horwitz in the last round. The only rookie or the only minor leaguer I've taken so far is Davison de los Santos from the Diamondbacks. Probably going to be here sooner than later, filling in for Gino Suarez at the hot corner. Kid has 26 minor league home runs this year. He's been wrecking the ball. It's going to be part of the prospects of the futures game coming up. It's been a fun minor league draft. I mentioned that because I might have to take a second to make a pick. Didn't get to doing it yesterday, but that really, really slowed down the draft. So we might do that today. But continue moving on here. So both these sides, believable starters and believable offense, kind of the same as yesterday. 4 corners game there. Giants at the Braves, a 3.16 implied total for the San Francisco Giants going against Chris Sale, top projected pitcher on the day. Believably the best pitching option overall. It's a pretty gettable San Francisco lineup, and he's been tremendous this year. Jordan Hicks going for the Giants. Pretty good at suppressing home runs for the most part. Has given up a few lately. Is kind of a mixed bag of quality. Doesn't give you a ton of depth, but does have some talent on the mound. 4.42 or 4.43 implied total for the Atlanta Braves, who have been one of the worst offenses in baseball over the last 2 months, basically, at this point. But there are some quality bats, some quality individuals lurking in that Braves lineup as usual, and there's a big collection of guys that have just been underperforming their talent. The Padres, the Rangers, 9-run total in this one, 4.21 implied total for the Pods. They're going up against John Gray, who another guy who is at least has the potential to be an effective starter. Strikeouts are way down this year. That's a big part of the problem, and it's a low strikeout opponent in the Padres. So I don't love the Gray spot, but we'll at least take a look at him. On the other side, 4.89 implied total for the Rangers going up against Adam Mazur. They look like a pretty interesting stack today, one of the top-ranked stacks on the board, and really could come through again like they did last night. Phillies at the Cubs, pretty low run total in this one because we've got Zach Wheeler going up against Shota Imanaga. Pretty stellar pitching matchup, 7.5 run total there, 3.87 implied total for the Phillies, 3.72 implied total for the Cubs. Looks like a day to probably consider the pitching there, and maybe Mamba not get too enthused about the bats on either side. Both those pitchers pretty good at keeping the ball in the park and limiting runs outside of the one meltdown a couple starts ago from Shota Imanaga, in which he gave up 10 earned runs on 11 hits and allowed 3 home runs. A little bit of a blip there. He's come back down to earth for sure over the last handful of starts, so it's not totally blanking the Phillies necessarily, but keeping them below 4 runs or in that kind of territory and not having a big DFS day, I think, is more likely than not. Tigers against the Twins. This one's really interesting looking. Cater Montero going for the Tigers, pushing a big total, 5.13 implied runs and a ton of power. I actually had to normalize him in the home run index, and the Twins are still easily the top power spot on the board. If I just let him fly, it would have been kind of ridiculous. Limited number of starts. He had given up like 3 home runs to 50 some odd or 30 some odd batters faced. So I just gave it a little bit of a tweak to bring the numbers at least within, a little bit reasonable of a scale. But the Twins look like a terrific stacking option today. They're not high priced. They're a strong value team. And I tell you what, they're not even crazy popular. There's a couple, at least in the ownership projections I looked at, there's a couple popular hitters in there, but you can easily stack it up so that they're not overwhelmingly owned. You've got a Coors Field game on the board. You've got the Dodgers drawing another big total, a couple other higher totals in the Rangers and the Yankees. So I feel like the Twins, not necessarily going to be sneaky, but definitely going to be in play. Definitely showing some interesting upside. And then, like I mentioned, their pitcher, David Festa, on the board from me. He is super cheap on FanDuel. He's pretty cheap on DraftKings, but the FanDuel price is notably low. And had a rough first outing last week, faced the Diamondbacks, gave up 5 earned runs, only struck out 2 over 5 innings. But again, a top 100 prospect facing a really low-end Tigers team that was just nailed by Davis Daniel, who we're going to talk about in a minute for the Angels. So love the upside for Festa at a very low cost. He makes a lot of things work. Probably, at least like rankings-wise, projection-wise, and traditional scouting-wise, right now, Festa's rated out higher than Birdsong, who we used yesterday against the Braves. And it was mixed. He gave up, I think, 3 earned runs, but then ended up coming away with a W and coming away with like 30 FanDuel points, which was more than enough because he only cost like 6,000 yesterday. It's that same kind of a play where just a good start from him leapfrogs over, as long as you drill the right bats, can leapfrog over medium to good starts from much more expensive pitchers. The Rays, the Royals. This one, big rain delay yesterday. Ended up coming back on online around midnight sometime, finishing out. Michael Wacha going against Ryan Pepio. Pepio for the Rays and Wacha for the Royals. Pretty even up game on the board in Vegas. Pretty low totals on both sides. 4.03 for the Rays, 4.05 for Kansas City. If I'm taking a lineup, it's probably Kansas City over Tampa Bay. But both of these pitchers, I think, are in play fairly from the mid-range. Both have been good. Both have been, had a couple of blips. Wacha fewer blips probably than Pepio. But Pepio's the higher-end talent with the better strikeout stuff. So it just looks like an intriguing spot for some pitching. Coors Field, I don't think we're considering pitching here. We've got Dakota Hudson and Colin Ray. Ray is typically more of a target for me for bats. He's pushing a 5.11 implied total toward the Rockies. And then Dakota Hudson, not a talented pitcher, but as we've talked about a number of times, a lot of the time he can go out there and suppress home run upside. It is having no impact on the Brewers' upside, 6.52 implied total. It's a monster. 11.5 run total for the game. And Hudson's had 3 games this season where he's given up 2 home runs, and then another 3 games where he gave up 1, and then everything else at 0. Just a guy who keeps the ball down by and large. So maybe it impacts the home run. Individual guy goes off for a monster score with no correlation kind of a day, and just makes it even a better correlated scoring opportunity type day in that ballpark for the Brewers. So they're justifiably the top of the board stacks wise. They're going to be super popular. They're priced up for Coors Field, and it looks like a very good opportunity for them outside of a little bit of a diminishment in the potential home runs. The Angels, the A's, we've got Joey Estes going against Davis Daniel. Daniel was the pitcher who came out and smoked the Tigers last week over 8 innings, gave up 4 hits, struck out 8. Don't know necessarily that he comes back out with that kind of performance. He got expensive on FanDuel, hilariously. I think he's more on the board on DraftKings. We'll give him a look. And then Estes, moderately believable against the Angels. There's just enough there. He struck out 8 against this team in his last performance, 5 2/3, gave up 2 runs, hit 3 hits, walked 2, struck out 8. If we just get an identical performance against the same team, perfectly happy with that for the money. So Estes kind of on the board as a value. The Dodgers and the Diamondbacks. Diamondbacks facing Gavin Stone. They're pulling just a 3.83 or 3.84 implied total against Stone. Stone's been pretty decent this season. And then a big total, 5.28 implied runs with a lot of bats looking pretty good for the Dodgers. They're facing Christian Mena in his major league debut. Not much of a pitcher from what it looks like in the minor leagues. we'll give them a glance, but we're certainly not going to be going to them. It's just a matter of how enthusiastic we get about Dodgers bats. To put a spoiler on it, kid's got a 4.66 xFIP underneath a 4.90 ERA over 82 2/3 and 16 starts in AAA this year. He's only 21. Could get a little bumpy for that pitcher. So kind of like the Dodgers bats tonight. Last game of the night, Logan Gilbert against Dean Kramer. Could be a decent spot for Dean Kramer. I mean, that's a really low run total for that very, very gettable Mariners team. 3.68 implied runs for them. Just a 7-run total in the game. And going back the other way, Logan Gilbert, it's kind of the same scenario for the Orioles as we saw last night, where it's just a really good Mariners pitching staff in a pitcher's park. Doesn't really add up to a super stackable spot for the Orioles. They're difficult to suppress as far as fantasy projections on an individual basis go. But it's a matter of how much do they stack up, how much do they correlate and create runs and keep the churn going in sequence against a very, very talented Logan Gilbert. So tough spot for the O's again. And that's our slate. Getting back to the board here. Lone Wolf's here. What's up, Lone Wolf? Estes and Montero load up on bats. Well, that would be a ballsy approach. Christian Walker just can't miss hitting in Dodger Stadium. Yeah, great results for that road player in Dodger Stadium. It's another thing I really don't go over the top on. Like, good player in a good park. But definitely can't argue with the results. And it's the same kind of a thing, right? He might just see the ball better against the batter's eye in Dodger Stadium than he does in other parks. Totally possible. No way to quantify it. Lone Wolf's thinking about running a Seattle stack. Lone Wolf's out on a limb today. I don't know. Today's his birthday, though. All right. Happy birthday, buddy. Hope you hit your Seattle stack with an Estes and Montero pairing for your birthday. Kramer's been getting lit up. Yeah, but there's a lot of bad pitchers who have beaten that Seattle team. They're just pushing a pretty decent projection to him for the money. Good enough starting point, right? He's probably... If we're doing like a same kind of board today, it's probably about the starting line. You could say that Carlos Rodon is probably in that group too, the way he's pitched this year and given the matchup in the ballpark. It comes down through like this. Even Abbott maybe is in that group. That's probably your group of same guys right through there. Do one of these. And then like upper tier with me not really liking Ronel Blanco. This is the more believable upper tier, I think, and Kikuchi is also a big question mark up there. So maybe it's just these three, followed by these three with bigger question marks. Big group of mid-level same guys with like Gavin Stone at a bit of a high price on FanDuel. Davis Daniel definitely at a high price on FanDuel. 91 versus 75 on DK. DK kept it realistic after that good start against the Tigers. FanDuel really pushed it up there. Getting Pepio for 8,900 versus Daniel for 9,100, even with a worse matchup, is a little bit silly. Really rough guys at the bottom of the board. But Sale, believably, top guy on either site, 11-3, 10-2, appropriately priced up. Pretty strong matchup against the Giants. We are looking at very limited weather concerns. Believe this was one of them. Yeah, it just seems like it's one of those days where there's some rain in the area for Atlanta, but probably not going to be a threat to the game. In Chicago for the Philly and the Cubs game, there's a very, very slight breeze blowing out to, looks like, center field. And then there is rain in the area for the Rays in the Kansas City game, but it's another one where it's probably going to be okay. Again, all weather, we defer to Kevin Roth over at Roto Grinders. Does a really good job. Wheeler, no concerns there. Wind, no wind, it doesn't really matter. It's Zach Wheeler going up against the Cubs, top end spot on the board. Cubbies really struggling for W's and for big run days. A lot of individuals that I still like in that lineup, but as a unit, they really haven't performed. Wheeler, one of the top starters, one of the top run suppressors in all of baseball. Logan Gilbert, again, just going up against a really challenging Orioles lineup, but no reason to think that he can't keep them down as far as runs go, and he's a pretty high-end pitcher for 10-2, 9,400, and might just fall by the wayside ownership-wise with a lot of focus on these two guys and then some spread down through those guys. I could easily see Logan Gilbert just on a talent kind of a bent going a little underowned. Kikuchi does have the stuff to find some strikeouts against even the Astros. They're very low strikeout, and it's the same exact scenario as it was yesterday. Low strikeout team, low strikeout opponents for both of these guys. Both quality enough with believable-ish results this year, or in the past for Kikuchi, where he was a target formerly, then kind of pulled things together over the last few years and now has kind of slipped. The price has declined with that. So any concerns about Kikuchi, I think are just baked into that 8,200, 8,000. Where for Ronel Blanco, it's not really the same thing as far as the pricing goes. 10-3, 9,000. I think he's just full-fledged high-priced against a stingy Blue Jays lineup that has shown some signs of life, that has some interesting hitters in it. I don't love the Blanco play for the money. I would probably take Kikuchi more frequently for the discount. Because, again, your concerns are taken care of there. Any concerns about Blanco between, recent outings, the issue with the sticky stuff, which he came back from and had some good starts in there, and then just the idea that he was overperforming his talent anyway, it makes that pricing a little bit tough. Rodon could get nailed by that Cincinnati team. Like I said, I think that run total feels a little bit low. Should probably be over 4 against this form of Carlos Rodon in Yankee Stadium. A lot of talent on that Cincinnati team. 9,300, 8,100. I tell you what, he's not mispriced. FanDuel feels correct-ish, little high maybe. 81 on DraftKings is a pretty fair price. That's not bad. So I think he's playable, just not a priority. Kramer, like I said, 8,600, 7,100, feels fairly playable against the team we've been targeting all year long. We'll go to that spot and it won't work out from time to time, but more often than not, we have succeeded with pitching against this Seattle team this year, and Kramer's got good enough stuff to succeed. 2 starts ago, he gave up 6 runs, but only 3 of them earned over 5 2/3. 4 hits, struck out 10, but walked 4 against the Diamondbacks. Diamondbacks are a better team than the Mariners are. Had another 10 strikeout game earlier in the year, back on April 24th. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. I missed that. I forgot he's been out. That start was a while back. I completely forgot that Kramer's been out. Let me pull him up real quick. I might have to get in there and limit that again. What did he get up to in the minors? 4 1/3 in the last outing. Yeah, that might be. He might be a little high. Gotta say, glad we looked. Glad I realized it. Apologies for that one. Oops, I don't want to click on batting. He certainly is not hitting. Rehab. Let me look at it real quick here. 75 pitches in that last one. So we're getting 80, 85. We're not far off the mark. But I'm probably going to lower this projection a little bit for Dean Kramer. I'll take a few pitches away from him. It'll probably knock him down to, maybe this level. Just a few points off, but he'll come down a little bit. Still like the matchup, but just without 90 pitches or more, I'm a little bit concerned. So we'll deal with that after the show. Keep an eye on projections, but definitely going to change a little bit. Johnny Gray, up and down season, limited for strikeouts this year. That's been the biggest problem. Where the hell is he? I'm all out of order because I scrolled all the way down for that one. Just 1 strikeout in the last game against the O's, 3 strikeouts, 2, 3 going back. It's been a minute since his 7 strikeout games back in May. But a talented enough guy, just not a great opponent for finding strikeouts all of a sudden. He's very, very cheap. Could succeed at those prices, 71.65. You could throw that dart at the Padres because the offensive upside is not huge for San Diego. It's just that they limit strikeouts. They can put the ball in play against, and that could be a big downside for John Gray. So kind of a both-sided spot there. Pepio, definitely a pretty both-sided spot going up against Kansas City. I can absolutely see them succeeding against him, but he's got the talent to find some strikeouts against that lineup and have a successful day. He is absurdly low priced on DraftKings at $7,100. That's a mistake price. He is definitely better than this, just on strikeout upside alone. 89 on FanDuel is about correct. 91 on FanDuel for Davis Daniel, definitely high. 75, pretty correct on DraftKings to make him a value dart that you can absolutely throw at the Athletics, given how good he was the last time out. Stone, not unfairly priced, just a little bit high compared to the rest of the board at 9,800 on FanDuel, 85 compared to the rest of the guys in this same group on DraftKings. Not great. I'd rather pay for a lot of these other guys, but he could definitely succeed at that price. Hicks against a pretty gettable Braves lineup. Just depends on what his strikeout potential looks like, what the innings depth looks like. That's been the most concerning thing about Hicks. Festa, I mentioned, really like him at both prices. A lot of upside, I think, for that pitcher going up against the low-end Tigers team. Very, very cheap on both sides. A worthy dart throw. Joey Estes could succeed here for 6,000, 6,800 across sites. Michael Wacha could definitely succeed against a kind of scuffling Rays team, or at least underperforming on a full season expectations wise Rays team. 8,500, 7,000. Wacha's really cheap on DraftKings as well. Abbott, I just don't love throwing an unreliable starter against the Yankees, an unreliable lefty against the Yankees in Yankee Stadium. Just doesn't feel great. 83.77. I do include him in that group, though, because he does come with a little bit of strikeout upside. The Yanks, outside of Soto and Judge, have been kind of scuffling along. So we'll see what the Yankees have in the lineup. We'll see how he looks, but bottom of the group of same guys. And then everybody else on this board is pretty rough. Montero, 4,000 is very, very cheap. But I'm just taking the twin side of that. They're just showing too much upside for me. What he does bring to the table is a little bit of strikeout potential from the minor leagues. So he's not completely dead at that price. 24.1% strikeout rate over 13 starts in AAA this season. 25.8 over 7 starts in AAA last year. 29.6 in AA over 15 starts last year. So there's a little something there strikeout-wise. I just would really rather have the Twins, but I get it if you want to roll the dart, throw the dart, roll the dice on DraftKings at 4K. Colin Wright is a big no at Colorado. Adam Mazur's a pretty big no against Texas. Mena is a huge no. He's only available on the DraftKings slate. I don't think we go there for him on against the Dodgers, even at 4K on DraftKings. Just feels a little light. And then Dakota Hudson for me is a pretty big no. Yeah, Steven, I care more about pitch count in and innings in rehab starts than I do about what the results were. A lot of times they're just, get out there, just work out your arm, throw, 75% effort, in a lot of cases. So sometimes you don't see the full effort there. Sometimes you do see wonky results in rehab starts. So I don't get too into that. It's kind of like spring training numbers. I don't get too into. I do believe that Kramer's talented enough, but with 75 pitches in the last one, figure 80, 85, somewhere in that territory, it does kind of limit it. It's a little bit artificial, but we're going to take 2-3 points away from him, I think. FanDuel scale. Just knock him down slightly. So first game up, this Reds and Yankees game. One more time, I do think that the Reds probably a little bit underappreciated by the Vegas total. They're going up against Carlos Rodon, who just down to a 22.9% strikeout rate. It's a respectable strikeout rate around the league average, but it's certainly not the 30+% guy that he used to be. 12.8% swinging is still very good. 27% CSW is not where he used to be. 4.42 ERA with a 4.35 xFIP. He's pitching okay. This is an average starter with great stuff ratings that should probably be better than he's been results-wise. But whether it's a little bit of diminishment in stuff based on the injury history or whether it's a little bit of trepidation about really unleashing the full potential because of the injury history, there's something going on here where he's not quite peak performance, but he has had good games. He has hit some nice strikeout totals. He had a 9 strikeout game where he gave up 2 runs in 6 innings to the Twins, which is a pretty good team, pretty good game there. A bunch of 6 or 7 strikeout games. Couple of 8s, but he had a really rough one in his last start. Gave up 8 earned runs to Toronto at Toronto. Struck out 8, but gave up 8 earned runs, 2 home runs. Struck out just 3 against the Braves. Gave up 7 earned runs, 8 runs total on 11 hits. 10 and 11 hits in each of those last 2 games. Really concerning. Short starts. Went 7 against Kansas City, 4 starts back on June 10th. Struck out just 3, walked 0, gave up just 1 earned run on 5 hits. It's a fairly effective start. That was the last start in a run of 7 quality starts in a row where he got the win bonus in all of them. So, I mean, capable enough of going out there and beating a high strikeout Reds team, although this version of the Reds lineup is showing you just a 20.3% strikeout rate. Part of that is helped by 12 plate appearances from Blake Dunn at 16.7. You've got, who else is in this lineup today? It's actually a better version strikeout-wise of than what they normally throw out there. Noelvi's at 19 over 21 plate appearances. That's helping out a little bit as well. You do have your usual high strikeout guys like Ellie, Jeimer Candelario, then Steer and Stuart Fairchild around the average. So a little bit of a reduced strikeout target, I guess, compared to where they might normally be. 23.1% for this same group of hitters from last year, but also some funky samples in there. There is a little bit of potential for Rodon to succeed. We know that Ellie diminishes in some ways, but has really been coming on against lefties as a right-handed bat lately. So it does take away a little bit of the Yankee Stadium advantage from him, but all he has to do, as he showed yesterday, is kind of put the ball in play. It tripled down the right field line in Yankee Stadium yesterday. It was pretty impressive, and then he rocked one into the left field seats for a home run later in the game. So, I mean, Ellie can get it done no matter what from either side of the plate. 6,200, 4,400, an absolute star. If you're going to the Reds, Ellie's your first click on most cases. Jonathan India, a playable discount at second base, 4,000, 3,000. He's getting on at a 381 clip now. Pretty productive season from India at this point. 123 WRC plus. He's very average in a lot of ways, but one of those ways that he's above average is in getting on base. Hits for an okay average, but in the leadoff role, he's very key as far as correlated scoring and run creation for this team right now. So an easy enough click for a discount at second base. Candelario, 7.40 in the home run model, first or third base, 4,200, 3,200 across sites, 14 home runs on the year, a 228 ISO. Easy click against Carlos Rodon if you're going to the Reds. Spencer Steer for 49.34. He's got 10 homers and 13 steals, a 109 WRC plus. Not a premium bat. Had a really good start, cooled off a little bit. Now it's just kind of in the middle of the road, but there are very good counting stat results there. He can draw a walk. He can definitely play solid enough right-handed bat against Carlos Rodon here. 6.39 in the home run model for him. Tyler Stevenson, 6.06 in the home run model. Very cheap at catcher on both sites, 3,600, 2,700. He's got 6 home runs, a 155 ISO, makes very, very good contact, as we've discussed a number of times. Not a bad catcher bat. Noelvi Marte, just 3,800, 2,600 for a premium rookie. 21 plate appearances coming back from his PED suspension. Just a 5 WRC plus. He did steal 2 bases. Needs to get it going, find his footing in the show. We're just getting started here. He's very cheap. He's playable enough if you're going to this team. Stuart Fairchild, Santiago Espinal, Blake Dunn from the bottom. Mix and match parts at best. Fairchild does have 4 home runs and 11 steals, but just a 305 on base and 83 WRC plus. The other guys are worse for run creation so far, with apologies to Blake Dunn because it's only 12 plate appearances. He is very, very cheap. So are the other guys down there. But your priority bats are probably 1 through 6 if you're rostering Reds. They're a middle of the board type stack. I do give them a little bit more credit than Vegas, but I do think that, half the time Carlos Rodon wins. A quarter of the time they beat Carlos Rodon, but don't go off for a giant DFS day. And then somewhere in the middle, in the remainder there, like half of those remaining days, they have a pretty key day. On the Yankees side, Andrew Abbott striking out 19.3%, walking 8.6%, which is too high to throw at this Yankees lineup. 4.78 xFIP under his very good 3.41 ERA, just a 91 rating by Stuff Plus, and giving up a fairly high home run rate, despite not many hard hits and a very manageable exit velo. Just the mistakes, getting barreled pretty well, and he's a very extreme fly ball pitcher. So these guys just loft the ball into the air, into the outfield at Yankee Stadium, and it could get out. So a little bit of concern there about Andrew Abbott's upside today. He's only medium projected, 12 and change on DK, 24 and change on FanDuel. Down at the bottom of the board. Again, he is the bottom guy in this group of same solid middle guys. It would be a stretch, the back end of a portfolio of 150 lineups to fill it out after I've made 140. Maybe he sneaks into a couple, but it's really, really limited the appeal here. much more inclined to go to Yankees bats again. You can see the big marks for power for Soto and Judge, 14.88 and 17.32. But you can also see the diminishment in quality around these guys. Now we're dealing with cleanup hitting J.D. Davis, who I do like against the lefty. I always talk about his premium contact that he's had for years and years against both hands, and he excels against left-handed pitching. But he's not all that successful for his major league career outside of hitting for good contact. Even the power numbers, kind of come and go. First and third base eligible for 32-22 across sites. He's very cheap. He's easy enough to play in conjunction with these guys. Helps lower the price, but it's kind of a limited option. Glaber's really been struggling. Anthony Volpe's really been struggling over the last month or two. 6 home runs and 15 steals that he's had for a minute now. His on-base percentage has plummeted by like 60 points over the last 5-6 weeks. WRC Plus is down at 100. He hasn't homered for a long time, just a 127 ISO. Really needs to get his act together up at the top of the lineup. He's kind of dragging this team down right now. Verdugo, also really scuffling. Had a great first 2 months and really, really scuffling. 241, 301, 389, a 148 WRC Plus. Glaber above him, just 226, 299, 351. Really problematic. And then you get to the bottom of the lineup today. It's DJ LeMahieu, which, hopefully the light goes on for DJ at some point, but he's been really bad for all of this year so far, over 103 plate appearances. He was greatly diminished from what he once was over the past couple of seasons. But now we're just down at a really, really low level of performance after he's been banged up and taken just so many stupid injuries in the foot and everything. So he's really tough to rely on. We do get a little bit of premium contact upside, maybe 40+% hard hits each of the last 3 years at least. Still doesn't really strike out, can draw some walks, maybe a correlated scoring option at best, but pretty limited. Mike Jones, Jose Trevino at the bottom is really, nobody's really prioritizing those bats. Limited. Been pretty bad. You're looking at a two-man Yankees lineup. Fortunately for the Yankees, one of those two guys is creating runs 83% better than the average player, so he basically counts for 2. And the other guy's creating runs 118% better than the average player, so he counts for 2 and plus a little bit. Soto and Judge go into your lineups, and then probably top priorities are still Volpe, J.D. Davis, Gleyber Torres around them, just for direct correlated scoring. Everybody's cheap. They're playable against a pretty gettable lefty. Maybe it's just a day to one off a Judge, get some home run upside, one off a Soto, take the lefty bat, one off J.D. Davis at really, really cheap prices and roll the dice. There are some bargains in there for sure with some upside, but it's been pretty rough. Yanks don't rate at the top part of the board, but they do have, again, a healthy run total in Vegas, one of the higher marks on the board. Oh, so that was, after that limited endorsement, tough call. I guess Yankees bats, Carlos Rodon, Reds bats, and then Andrew Abbott. All 4 things are at least somewhat playable, but all 4 things clearly have some warts as far as, reason to avoid. See if we got lineups here. Blue Jays is in, the Astros is not. So, as mentioned with this one, it's kind of identical to what we were dealing with in this game yesterday, where both sides do have some appeal as far as, medium strength run totals in the mid-4s, lower mid-4s, but playable with some good bats on both of these teams and some compelling hitters against these pitchers. But there's plenty of reason to believe that both of these pitchers could succeed against these lineups, even with their low strikeout nature, with the quality bats in those lineups. So it's a true 4 corners game in this one. What I can see, though, is a lot of both teams scored 4 or 5 runs. They didn't have great DFS days. Maybe you got a homer from Jordan again or Vladdy or somebody. Both teams just kind of level out to just, they were all right, but they didn't win the day kind of DFS days. And the same thing happens with both pitchers, where it's like, all right, they gave up a couple of runs, but they managed to get through their 6. They got their bonuses and what have you. So, a medium strength 4 corners game on all sides. Ronel Blanco off the top. You can see still 5 points below average by Stuff Plus, a 2.49 ERA, but lurking beneath the surface, a 4.20 xFIP. That's a significant enough difference. 13.2% swinging strikes is terrific. 29.2% CSW is not bad. 23.4% strikeout rate, all right, not bad. 10.3% walks is aggressively high. That means his 1.01 whip is a little bit BABIP-based, a little bit luck-based. Oops. He has a 183 BABIP against, batting average on balls in play, if you're not familiar with the acronym. That's absurdly low. It's luck, it's happenstance, whatever you want to call it. Results have been very, very favorable for Ronald Blanco. That's what I mean when I say he's outperforming his talent level. You can see all the barrels he's given up. He's another guy that's a fly ball pitcher, 17.6 degree average launch with 8.9% barrels. Limits hard hits okay, or has been limiting hard hits okay anyway. Exit velo is not bad, but 3.62% home runs, that's gettable. Certainly guys that can excel, that can hit home runs on the Blue Jays. Nobody over the magic number, but a bunch of guys in that territory. Well above halfway, 2/3 of the way to the magic number. Not bad. That's what I mean when I say Toronto is somewhat stackable today. It's just a matter of how much they sequence. How do they do down lineup against Blanco? Does he find success down there and limit their ability to turn the lineup over and bring it back up to the top? Does George Springer give you anything off the top? 9 home runs, 9 stolen bases for Springer on the season, but a 214, 300, 347, pretty problematic. 12% below average for run creation, just a 130 WRC plus, or just a 130 ISO rather for Springer. It's very, very cheap at 3,900, 2,900 for his history, but we're aged up a little bit at this point. Maybe it's the end of the line for Springer. I didn't see it coming. I thought he'd still be at least decent, and we really haven't seen him deliver, but maybe there's still a little bit of life. Guy I do really like in this lineup, very strong lefty bat against a, again, overperforming righty, Spencer Horwitz. Just 4,100 on DK, first and second base eligible, same positioning for 2,800 on FanDuel. I think he makes a really interesting one-off, just with the ability to put the ball in play, the ability to get on base. 302, 436, 492 over his first 78 plate appearances this year in the show. He's got the 3 home runs that I mentioned earlier. He's got a 190 ISO right now. He's barreled the ball 11.1% of the time. Like I said, he's not known for hard hits, but he is known for back control, for barrels, for an absurd amount of plate discipline. 11.5% strikeouts and 15.4% walks so far. This is maybe not exactly where it's going to end up. It might not be this dramatic between low and high the way you would want it, but he's going to be low strikeout, high walk. Very strong on base skills. So I really think he's interesting to just be on a few times, correlate, score some runs with the upside for more. He hit his 3rd home run last night. So I love Horowitz in that spot. Vladdy Guerrero, 4,600, remains ludicrously underpriced on DraftKings. 3,300, very cheap on FanDuel as well. 13 home runs. He's up to 298, 378, 472, 144 WRC plus. The ISO has climbed up to 175. He has a 57.3% hard hit rate, 13.5% barrels. We need to raise these prices for Vladdy. Got 3rd base eligibility on FanDuel still. Bo Bichette, 42.27. Ridiculously cheap, but also ridiculously underperforming his talent this season. 4 home runs, 4 steals, 227, 282, 326, a 74 WRC plus. It's been problematic, but when you go to the Blue Jays and you see Bo Bichette at these prices, you just include him because you know that he is a better player than this. The talent has not completely abandoned him. So you're just buying upside at this point. Buy the dip, as they say. He's been bad. No doubt about it. Maybe he went blind over the offseason and he just hasn't told anybody yet. He's also got some weird stalker fan, I guess, in the seats, or I don't know. I saw a bunch of stuff going around social media. I didn't actually put my finger on what the story is. Anybody have that? What is going on with that lady in the seats for him? Reds WRC plus versus lefties on the road this season is. Steven's keeping us in suspense. Man, we're splitting that down. Lefties on the road, huh? Let's see. First lefties. Can I even build that split in here? I think I would have to go to the actual splits board, which I'm not going to bother doing. You can tell me, buddy. So yeah, again, Bichette, you're just buying you're buying a talent at very, very cheap prices. All of the struggles are cooked into these prices. You're buying the lineup spot. You're buying the upside. You're buying the bounce back. Dalton Varsho, Sub Mendoza, 277 on base is terrible, but a 202 ISO, 11 home runs, 8 steals. Counting stats are at least there. He's a very mix and match caliber player, and a lot of zeros go in your lineup when you're rostering Dalton Varsho, but capable of performing. Left-handed bat with some power upside against a medium righty. Davis Schneider, 4,200 is hitting the ball pretty hard, 13.9% barrels, 34.5% hard hits underneath that is not ideal, but he's got 10 home runs, a 192 ISO over 273 opportunities, a little bit of multi-position eligibility for a cheap price if you're going to this team. Bottom of the lineup with Ernie Clement, Addison Barger, and Brian Serven. Barger, a little bit of a prospect. Serven, less so. 2,000 cross sights, a catcher, kind of skippable down there. And then Ernie Clement, a mix and match piece. He's got 268, 285, 425 slash line, 4 home runs, 3 steals on a 99 WRC plus over 160. He's very cheap, but not ideal at third base. Playing him in the middle infield for 2,200 on FanDuel has a little bit more appeal. Probably a better option, though, if you're just stacking this team and you need a cheap infielder rather than a guy to prioritize or a guy to consider like a one-off or anything like that. Anthony Taylor says the Houston lineup is in. Not on Labs yet, unfortunately, but let me see if I can get it easy. Right. It's Altuve, Bregman, Alvarez, Diaz. Looks pretty standard so far. Myers, Pena, Dubon, Chaz, and Kessinger. They got it exactly right. So, Kikuchi, again, overall, the numbers are not bad. 4.18 ERA with a 3.28 xFIP, 12.4% swinging strikes with a 29.4% CSW. He's just back to kind of giving up a whole lot of barrels and a whole lot of power and premium contact. It's resulted in a 3.20% home run rate, but that feels a little bit lucky given the 44.1% hard hits, the 90.5 miles an hour of exit velo, 10% barrels on a 14.5 degree average launch. That is pretty extreme. That's getting back toward, this year was a little bit more managed. That's getting back toward like this kind of territory where it was at 5+%. He's always been a guy that, comes and goes as far as being targetable and then being good. He's always had pretty good strikeout stuff. He limits walks. Or at least this year he's limiting walks, 5.6% this year. I think he had a walk issue, this year, 12.8% 2 years ago over 102 thirds. But he managed to wrangle it this year, was a decent pitcher this year. Still gave up some targetable power, but he's gettable. It's a very low strikeout Astros team on the other side. They're drawing a little bit of power upside, at least across the top-end hitters in this lineup. Like I said, it is a spot where it's, just very, very much a four corners game that might just all land right squarely in that around these medians and around the middle. So tough spot to endorse enthusiastically on either side. But I think if I had to, one or the other in the head-to-head there, I think I favor the Astros bats rather than Kikuchi a little bit. 8,200, 8,000, all those concerns, again, totally taken care of by those prices. He is not a bad option at these prices. It's just in the direct head-to-head, take price, take ownership, DFS out of it. I do think the Astros beat him more often than not. Take advantage of that power more often than not. On the Astros side, Jose Altuve, Alex Bregman, Jordan Alvarez at the top of the lineup, all tremendous options. Altuve's got 13 homers and 13 steals. Alvarez has 18 home runs, hit his 18th, I believe, last night, up to a 240 ISO, 154 WRC+, 297, 374, 537, looking a hell of a lot more like Jordan Alvarez from the last few seasons than he was earlier this year. 57, 41, arguably still $200-300 cheap on the DraftKings slate, 300-400. So not bad there. Bregman in the middle of those two hitters for 4,300 at third base on DK, 3,100 on FanDuel. At least still has quality right-handed power in that bat. He's got 9 home runs, just a 149 ISO, just a 100 WRC+. It's not been a good season from Bregman, but he did come to life a little bit, started making better contact, found most of those home runs over the last 5 6 weeks, going up against the lefty that gives up a ton of premium contact. 9.20 in the home run model is totally believable for me for Alex Bregman. Jainer Diaz, 41.29, continues to be an effective catcher bat from the cleanup spot in this lineup. Easy to get to that 46.9% hard hit rate for $4,100 for a catcher that strikes out just 13.8% of the time while walking 3.7%. Just buy that premium contact. Frequent premium contact is what we're looking for. Jake Myers for 33.27, 8 home runs, 7 stolen bases, having an effective year, 112 WRC+. Totally playable for the money, right-handed bat going up against Kikuchi, a little bit of power upside, a little bit of 7.7% barrels, 40.5% hard hits. Those numbers are up compared to who Jake Myers has been in the past, but there's a little bit of quality there, and he's got a really good spot in the lineup if you're going to this team. Apologies while I break off another piece of tissue here. Another day where my allergies smack me in the face for whatever reason. Just when I let the dog out, I think, into the backyard, it's like a forest back there right now because they haven't trimmed anything or cut anything in a while. It just immediately started sneezing when I opened the door. Popped the claret and stopped sneezing, but still got the sniffles. It's a pain in the ass. Jeremy Pena, 4,000, 3,000, 278, 322, 388. Mixed quality this year. Does have his upside games. He is low strikeout, low walk, so we're getting a lot of balls in play. 39.3% hard hits is all right. It's been over 40% for most of the season. 6 home runs, 10 steals, down to a 110 ISO, but a 103 WRC+. He's a playable shortstop. He's just not a priority. But especially in stacks of Astros, if you don't have a premium shortstop that you're targeting from another lineup from your other stack, then Pena's totally playable. No real issues with it. Mauricio Dubon, an up-and-down performer, but a good stick. 289, 311, 403. Good back control, put the ball in play type of a player. First and outfield, not totally ideal at 3,200 on DraftKings. Second base, in with third base, first base, and outfield on FanDuel. A little bit more flex over there. McCormick for just 3,000, 2,500, totally playable in the outfield. 3 home runs, 5 steals in a down season after his breakout last year. Has been injured, has only made 150 plate appearances. Definitely a guy I'm still interested in at the bottom of the lineup, and up to a 9.6% barrel rate this season, even with the lack of success. So at least some signs of life, some counting stats recently. So happy to go to Chas McCormick shares in my Astros stacks. And then Gray Kessinger is at the bottom of the lineup for 2,000 at third base on DK. You're probably not going to him over Alex Bregman that frequently. 3 positions on FanDuel looks a little bit more playable there. I know he's been around for a minute. He's 26. Peaked in AA in 2022 with 16 home runs and 23 stolen bases. Hasn't approached those numbers in a combined sense across AAA and limited opportunities in the show so far. A mix and match piece from the 9 spot at best. So call it a tie. 4-way tie across the board. If you have a favorite thing in this game, you can play it. It's actually not a tie in a couple senses. Like I said, between the two pitchers, I do favor Kikuchi a little bit because his struggles or his downside is baked into that price. Where I think right now Ronel Blanco is just kind of exclusively priced for the upside that he's already provided while pitching over his head. And that doesn't make him a good buy against a low strikeout, medium quality Blue Jays team. The bats are more of a tie between the two sides. I can see either one of these sides succeeding. A little bit more power upside probably showing on the Astros side, which makes sense. Maybe a little bit more quality for sequencing, and certainly better bargains in the Blue Jays lineup. So it's an interesting game. Definitely on the radar. Giants and the Braves. Let's see if we got the lineup for the Giants. I don't see it. Oh, there it is. It just dropped. How about that? Lead off Jorge Soler again. Slater. Tyler Fitzgerald? I think it's Tyler. Find out together. It is Tyler. Chris Sale, easily the top pitcher on the slate. 32.3% strikeout rate this year. 15.1% swinging strike rate. 33.1% CSW. A 2.79 ERA with a 2.44 xFIP underneath it, just walking 4.7%. We're back to the days of dominant Chris Sale with a bullet. 11.3 on FanDuel, very, very expensive. 10.2 on DraftKings, very, very expensive. Going up against the Giant squad, the confirmed lineup, 22.5% strikeouts. Same group of hitters, 26.4% last year. Call it 24-25, 1-4 upside with a pitcher who's doing better than that on his own at 32%. Big strikeout potential for Chris Sale here. Love the spot. Figure out a way to pay for it. No issues with it. Very little downside for Chris Sale. Could they get to him for some power with some of the right-handed bats like Jorge Soler? Sure. Elliot Ramos at 6.22 in the home run model? Sure. But Sale is not easy to homer against. For one thing, he keeps the ball down. For another, he avoids barrels and premium contact like crazy. 30.7% hard hits with an 85.7 miles an hour of exit velo. Remember, we're looking for like 90 and 40 here. We're significantly better than average with Chris Sale. So it's really, really tough to see the Giants succeeding here, even as a hedge, even as an angle into the slate at low ownership, even as a targeting the top pitcher of the day with very, very cheap bats. It's just a little bit rough. They are super cheap on FanDuel, but you can see all this green here, right? All these really low prices from 5 down are attached to like Luis Matos. Maybe a little bit of potential there in a future sense, but right now we're not really performing at any kind of a high level. David VR, we kind of know, is just a medium strength type player. 15 plate appearances have been good, but he's not a star by any means. He's nothing to worry about, and you're not buying much for your 23-21 there. Nick Ahmed, Kurt Casale, Tyler Fitzgerald. It's just limited as you go down lineup for those cheap prices. So you're buying like weak hitters against one of the top pitchers in baseball if you start doing that. So really you want to make your show up in this territory where, yeah, Austin Slater's really cheap, but again, he's just another guy who's up there because he's right-handed and typically moves up the lineup in a platoon sense against lefties. But a lot of their best hitters are not in this lineup, so it's not a great day for the Giants. If I'm going there, it would be to get Soler, Ramos, and Chapman, and those are the targets that everybody's going to pull. So you're not going to really differentiate that much. Or at least you're not going to differentiate from the other people who are using the Giants to differentiate, which defeats the purpose. Soler's up to 10 home runs after last night, a 177 ISO, up to a 107 WRC+. Slash line is pretty weak, but hopefully the power's coming around a little bit, and he's getting back up towards, he's clawed his way up to a 9.6% barrel rate, for example. So hopefully we're approaching previous levels for power output for Soler. Probably the best option in this lineup, given the spot in the leadoffs, hitting leadoff. 4,200 on DraftKings is very cheap for his talent, for his ceiling. 29, same thing on FanDuel. But again, just a terrible matchup for home run upside. Slater is a mix and match piece at best. 28-21, he's very cheap. Elliot Ramos has been fantastic since he's joined this team. 11 home runs now, 225 ISO, a 17% barrel rate, and 53.3% hard hits. Apologies. He's probably the top priority in this lineup. It's probably Ramos, then Soler at this point, just because of how good Ramos has been. Matt Chapman still hits the ball really hard, 11.9% barrels, 47.7% hard hits. Mixed results. He's got 11 home runs. He's stolen 7 bases now. It's wild. 169 ISO, though. Limited results, but a lot of power. A 110 WRC+. But again, terrible matchup. And then it's the bottom. Matos, 34-24. Mix and match. He's got 4 home runs in 123 plate appearances, but a 136 ISO and 83 WRC+. VR, again, this is just 15 plate appearances this year. Last year, over 140, he was at 145, 236, 315. The year before, in 181, he was at 231, 331, 455. He did hit 9 home runs with a 224 ISO in that small sample. He's got a little bit of pop in that bat against your average lefty, but Chris Sale is not your average lefty. Really rough spot. 5.52 in the home run model, though. Puts him 3rd on the team, 4th on the team. Nick Ahmed, just a contact-oriented middle infield type, mix and match play at best, replacement level type player. Kurt Casale doesn't really offer much from the catcher spot, and Tyler Fitzgerald's at 3,700, 2,300. Over 76 plate appearances has been all right, 286, 342, 414, a 120 WRC+. Last year, 2 limited in 34 plate appearances, so nothing really to talk about there. But we're talking about the 9-hitter in the Giants lineup going up against Chris Sale. It's a pretty limited DFS spot. For the Braves facing Hicks, not necessarily a blow him away type starter. 20.9% strikeouts, a little bit of a walk issue at 9.1%. Not completely tragic, but that's higher than you'd want it. 3.36 ERA is good. A 4.05 xFIP underneath that is, again, higher than you'd want it, but non-tragic overall. It's not bad. 10.4% swinging strike rate is fine. 27% CSW is a little low. That's a little high on the whip. But what I like, limits premium contact, limits launch angle, 9.1 degree average launch, 8.9% barrels this year. The barrels are high, but that's a few mistakes in there that have probably traveled and account for the 2.4% home run rate. But it's not bad when it's coming largely on a 9.1 degree average launch. Good ability to suppress home run upside and power. And again, once we get to that territory where we're sub 10 degree average launch, then we care less about the hard hits and the exit velo. It does sometimes amount to batting average on balls in play, some doubles, some run scoring days. So again, not completely safe, but not projected like it. 7,800, 7,300 for a solid mid-range option against a really scuffling Atlanta Braves team. Puts him on the board as a value play, nothing more, but he's playable. The issue with Hicks, and especially on FanDuel, is you typically get limited innings. 5 innings in his last start, gave up 3 earned runs, but struck out 7, gave up a homer on 5 hits. That was against the Cubs. No win, no quality start. 4 innings, gave up 5 earned runs, obviously a rough one against St. Louis. Faced the Cubs in Chicago the start before that. Went just 5, gave up no runs, struck out 4, walked 4 hits. But no quality start, no win. 4 2/3, 3 2/3. He's completed the 6th inning 1, 2, 3 times all year and not since April 27th. So you just get limited output, but a lot of decent starts in there. Challenging to not use the word quality. Like quality start, not the statistic, but the actual quality of the start. So we try and avoid doing that, but some decent starts through that stretch. Believable that he suppresses the Braves' home run upside. And if you take that away from this bunch of Braves, the way they've been playing this year, it's a very limiting factor. Only Marcell Ozuna and Matt Olson, and Olson's only barely scraping by. Only those two guys even halfway to the magic number. You've got a quality bat in Kelnick at the top of the lineup, 278, 322, 458, a 181 ISO, 9 homers, a 118 WRC+, having a really nice little season so far. 245 plate appearances, 10.8% barrels, and 46.2% hard hits. He's really delivering for this Braves team and getting a crack in the leadoff spot. He's interesting for the cheap pricing if you're going to the Braves, but it's a challenging pitcher to really succeed against with the way this team's been playing. Ozzy Albies for 54-34. You guys know I like Ozzy, but it's been limited results. Having a rough season. 6 home runs, 6 steals. The premium contact is way down year over year. Just a 99 WRC+. There's a lot of quality in that bat. He is still low strikeout, low walk, so a lot of balls in play. But it's been a little bit rough. We could use a little bit of a discount on Ozzy at this point. Ozuna for 59, 4,000. Maybe a little bit cheap for a guy with 21 home runs and a 296, 379, 560 with a 264 ISO. Still creating runs, 61% better than average. He's come back to earth slightly, but still 18.1% barrel, 54.2% hard hits. He can't do everything on his own. There's going to be some dips in there. So you're getting him at a expensive but fair price. 51 for Olson, 53 for Riley on DraftKings, 32 and 35 on FanDuel. You get it's about the same. Either way, you're buying 2 very, very high-end power bats who are delivering some premium contact, just diminished a little bit in premium contact for a lot of the season for both of them. 12 home runs for Olson, 10 home runs for Riley. Both guys easily playable, priority bats if you're going to this team. 108 WRC plus for the first baseman, 112 WRC plus now for the third baseman, who was really shot in the foot for most of the first part of the season. So nice bounce back from Riley. Olson yet to really get it going, but he had been struggling less. Both guys easily playable. Travis d'Arnaud instead of Sean Murphy today. Those guys are pretty similar in terms of being very high quality power hitters at catcher for cheap prices. d'Arnaud for just 36 makes a lot of sense to me as a catcher option on DK. 29 on FanDuel. The one issue with that is you're targeting home runs against a pitcher who is by and large not giving up a ton of home runs. Duvall, it's kind of similar in that Duvall's just really a right-handed home run threat. Forrest Wall, Zach Short, just mix and match pieces in the infield at best at the bottom of the lineup. So I think the Braves are limited. I think the Giants are limited in a bad spot against a really good pitcher. It's really Chris Sale on his own, top of the board. A couple value darts maybe with Jordan Hicks out of the middle at a fair price. And then Braves kind of meh. Giants even more meh. The Braves are the more playable of the two stacks, but really no giant enthusiasm about them. Pods and the Rangers. Johnny Gray against Adam Mazur in this one. We've got the Rangers lineup in and easily accessible. Pods lineup. Let's see if we actually got it. Royce Lewis going to the IL, by the way, in that Twins game. That was pretty much given. He wasn't in the confirmed lineup that were, or the projected lineup. Came out with a groin injury yesterday and was pretty devastated when talking to the media. So, no Royce Lewis for the Twins, but that was expected. Looking at this one, Adam Mazur, 6,200, 6,000, 10.7% strikeouts and 16.5% walks over his 5 starts and 22 and a third innings. Just 2.7% barrels if you need something to go for him, but 7.25 ERA with a 6.52 xFIP seems pretty targetable. Last time out, 4 earned runs, no strikeouts, 1 walk, a home run allowed to the Nationals. Gave up 3 earned on 5 hits, struck out 3, but walked 3, gave up a home run to the Brewers. Meltdown against the Diamondbacks back on June 9th. 8 earned runs over 3 innings. Just gave up 2 earned over 3 2/3 to the Mets on the 15th, but struck out just 4 and walked 6. Problematic. I think it speaks to a lot of upside for the Rangers bats. You can see some of the quality coming through. A couple guys at or about the magic number for home run upside. They're sitting at a very healthy 4.89 implied total. Only a few teams, what is it, the Yankees, the Coors game, the Twins, and the Dodgers ahead of the Rangers in this one. A lot of quality bats that are still at fairly cheap prices for the Rangers. No Corey Seager still, obviously, but you get a highly performing and very cheap Josh Smith filling in the second spot. Capable lefty bat against a really weak righty pitcher. Marcus Semien doing Marcus Semien things. 11 home runs on the season. Just a 147 ISO and 90 WRC plus. But as we've talked about, I don't think we're far off the mark based on how everything over here looks. So I think just a little bit of happenstance in the results so far for Semien, and he probably picks it back up. 3,300 is cheap at second base on FanDuel. 51, same thing on DraftKings. Smith has hit 7 home runs. What I like even better about him is the 291 average, the 386 on base that he's maintained. When he first came into the lineup, he was first taken over for Josh Young, who's been unable to get back from his injury and was diagnosed with a setback just recently. When he first stepped into the lineup, I was saying, Josh Smith, we've seen this before. We've been here, and he's not really performed and really exceeded my expectation in terms of the average, the on base, and with a little bit of pop in his bat this year, a 450 slug. He's held down a very good, if you're looking at, I'm in the Dynasty League as an OPS league, and he's on my, he's an injury replacement for me right now, but he's holding down an 836 OPS right now, over 300 plate appearances. It's the best season of Josh Smith's career. Nathaniel Lowe, 3,600, 2,900, still very, very cheap for the quality in his bat. 256 plate appearances. We're up to 6 home runs, just a 130 ISO, but a 114 WRC plus. He's getting on at a 352 clip. He's doing exactly what he typically does, and we've seen outbursts for power from him in the past. Last year, just 17 home runs, but a very similar looking slash line. Created runs exactly the same level. Hit for a little bit more power in a 152 ISO, but this could come around with a few doubles, a couple home runs. And then the year before was tremendous. 302, 358, 492 with a 191 ISO, and he hit 27 home runs that year. There's a lot of upside for a very cheap price. 3,600 on DraftKings is silly cheap. 2,900 on FanDuel. This one was like, this could be 300 to 500 more easily. This one is easily 1,000 short. Probably more. Well, maybe not more, but that's 1,000 short. 4,500 for Adolis Garcia is also very, very cheap. 3,300 on FanDuel. Hit his 16th home run last night, 205 ISO. He's not giving us a lot of the other things that we want from him as far as getting on base, hitting for average. The on base ability obviously feeds this stolen base upside, and he does have that skill. Just hasn't really fed us in that way this year. But even if he's just a power hitter, 16 homers, 205 ISO, 14.2% barrels, 47% hard hits. He should not be that cheap, even just as a home run hitter. FanDuel's closer to the mark with 3,300, but still cheap there. Wyatt Langford has been really coming on lately. 261, 325, 394, up to a 101 WRC plus. 4 homers, 7 steals, very good bat. 42.1% hard hits, sub 20% strikeouts. The ability to draw a walk, just 4,000, 3,100. Another discounted bat in this lineup. Jonah Heim, a playable catcher with a little bit of power upside, 7 home runs on the year. Jankowski, more just get on correlated scoring, maybe steal a base kind of a play, 23-20 across sites. Just another outfielder, really. Medium kind of upside. Leota Taveras, 29-24. Same thing for a little bit of a higher price. Maybe a little bit more output in terms of counting stats, but this is over 291 plate appearances now. Just an 80 WRC plus after an okay season last year. A little bit of a counting stat breakout last year. Jonathan Ornelas, now in the lineup. Dead min price on both sites. Three home runs and 7 stolen bases, 246, 318, 345 with a .099 ISO, over 259 opportunities in AAA this season. Peaked at 14-14 over 580 plate appearances in AA in 2022. He's 24 years old. It's not like he's old and missed his window or anything. Just kind of a lightweight prospect down at the bottom of the lineup. Deadman Price is effective. Third base, not a positional blocker. He also has second base eligibility, but you're not skipping Semien. I guess he is a positional blocker on DraftKings. You got to skip either Semien or Smith to get him. FanDuel, it's easier. But no priority. Going the other way, Johnny Gray, 65-71. Does have a 21.4% strikeout rate. 3.77 ERA with a 3.91 xFIP. Finding 12% swinging strikes, which is very effective. He's given up a lot of hard hits, a lot of exit velo, a lot of barrels on a fly ball trajectory, which means this is definitely lucky. He should have been giving up more home runs, which would have pushed this up. 6.2% walks, not bad. 76 and a third over 14 starts. The depth typically not great. He's completed the 6th inning once in June. 4 times since the start of May, 3 of which came before May 15th. Had a good run through there. Last start in April, he went 8. First start in May, he went 7, then 6, then 6 and a third. All quality starts. Just 1 win in that group. Struck out 7 exactly in 2 of those games. Had a 7 strikeout game over just 4 2/3 against Seattle before that stretch back at the end of April. But 2 of his last 3 games, 5 innings against the Orioles. Gave up 8 earned on 9 hits. Struck out just 1, gave up 2 home runs and a walk. Good start against the Royals, 6 innings, just 3 strikeouts, but only 2 hits, no runs. That's quality enough. If you get even that for 6,500, 7,100 with a ton of win upside, it's not bad for your money. He got the win in that game. It's exactly what you would want out of John Gray. You would want more strikeouts if you could get them. But that's an effective enough start for these cheap prices. Start before that, not so much. Faced the Mets, gave up 9 earned runs on 11 hits. Struck out just 2, walked 0, gave up 2 home runs in 3 innings. It's very dicey with John Gray. It's a very low strikeout opponent with the Padres in town. Luis Arias at the top is obviously tremendous. Strikes out at a 5.6% rate. Draws just 4% walks. Everything is in play with Arias. You get Profar and Cronenworth, both respectably low strikeout. Manny Machado and Higgy are the only 2 somewhat targetable strikeout guys in this lineup. Machado at just 21.6%, and he was 18% last year. Higgy, believably high, 32.1% and 28.5% last year. But Gray's going to have his work cut out for him finding any strikeouts. What he could do, though, is give you 5-6 effective, clean innings. That exact Kansas City game is at least somewhat in play. I think he's a dice roll for 65-71. He is on the board. Especially when he's up here in that group of same guys. Pretty highly ranked among those guys. FanDuel-wise, Davis Daniel exceeds him. This would reconfigure slightly. But he's playable on both sides. Not your top priority, but he's in the mix. Padres bats against. You're dealing with a fairly low-end version of the Padres lineup at this point in terms of any kind of power or DFS upside. They are pulling a 4.21 implied total. They do have some quality in terms of hit tools and getting on base. They are still flashing a little bit of power through the middle in terms of these home run totals. Manny Machado, an underperforming star. He's got 10 home runs, but just a 139 ISO. There are a lot of good positive run creators in that lineup. You got to give them that. But not the most threatening group in the world. Arraez, 2,800 on FanDuel, 4,800 on DraftKings. First base only, that kind of sucks. Love having him at second base, and 2,800 is really cheap for a guy with 4-hit potential. A lot of correlated scoring upside. Profar for 43.34 still feels a little bit lightly priced on DraftKings, or maybe they're just sticking to their guns and not buying into the ridiculous half season he's had. Over 350 plate appearances. He's been tremendous. 156 WRC plus, 11 homers, 4 steals, 311, 404, 472. Nobody saw it coming. DraftKings still not buying in price-wise. If you believe, you can absolutely play Jerks and Profar for 43. FanDuel, 34. Not an unfair price given the current year performance. Cronenworth, 46.31, 12 home runs, hitting for a decent amount of power. Just a 176 ISO. That's where some of it falls by the wayside when I say like they've got good home run totals, but not necessarily a ton of power. Look at the ISO numbers compared to the home run totals. Machado, again, 265, 315, 405, just the 139 WRC plus, but 10 home runs. Effective. He is hitting the ball hard. 8% barrels, 47.9% hard hits. I still do like Manny Machado. I still buy into the upside and the bounce back in a strong second half. 5,200, cheap enough on DraftKings. 3,200, perfectly fine on FanDuel. Donovan Solano, good line drive skills, a decent run creator, 278, 349, 383. Get on base, provide some correlated scoring. He's got 3 home runs on this season. He's fairly low strikeout. Pretty decent bat, hitting 5th or thereabouts in this lineup. Jackson Merrill, probably the second highest priority player on this team right now. 291, 325, 459 over his first 310 plate appearances in the show. He's had a fantastic rookie season. 12 home runs, 9 steals, a 125 WRC plus. Ha-Seong Kim, 44, 3,000, 10 home runs, 16 steals. Perfectly playable. Still getting on base at an okay clip. Still creating runs, 109 WRC plus. Nothing to dislike about Kim. Kyle Higashioka, we've talked about a million times. I think we were the only people who saw his home run outburst through June coming. Not that we exactly pegged what it would be. Had a tremendous month. But he's a guy we've always talked about for that premium contact ability. 9 home runs and 106 plate appearances this year. Dramatically surpassing his output in any previous season. 317 ISO, 111 WRC plus. Much of this and that are not necessarily real. The Sub Mendoza I totally buy into. The 236 on base totally buy into. But he's a cheap enough catcher bat given the power upside. Don't dislike Higgy at the bottom. Bryce Johnson, more of a mix and match piece. Rangers bats, Padres bats, John Gray as a value dart. Monty, if you wanted like your email or something like that, buddy. When showing support via Venmo, PayPal, or Cash App, what should we put in the subject line for future rollover to subscription services? Yeah, just drop your email in there or something, or just say, Monty Pritchett, and I'll be able to track you down as long as you show up to these shows or in the Discord or whatever. Or your real name, your address, your social security number, and your mother's maiden name. Either way. Pop the little banner up there for that info. It's also down in the description if you want it. Appreciate it. Also, if you're checking out, looking for optimizers and sim products, check out our pals over at acemind.io. Killer products for all the major sports right now in DFS. A lot of new stuff coming up. Great product for football that we used all through last season. We're going to be going back to this season. Product up for baseball. Some of the lowest pricing in the industry. The lowest pricing in the industry for sim tools. 3 free days from those guys as a trial period. And then when you decide to subscribe, promo code rotoscouts, all in caps, like you see in that little scroll banner at the bottom of the screen right now. Get you 20% off your first month over there. Pretty awesome opportunity to get a very powerful tool for not a bad price. Continuing on. Wheeler, Imanaga. Pretty high-end pitching matchup here. Wheels over 17 starts, 105 2/3. One of the better, more reliable options for depth in all of Major League Baseball. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 of his last 5 starts, he's pitched into the 7th inning, completing it 3 times, going 6 2/3 in his most recent start against Miami. Struck out 5, walked 2 in that one, gave up 2 earned on 7 hits. Start before that faced Arizona, 7 innings, 8 strikeouts, and earned run on 2 hits. Melted down against the Orioles. That was a tough one. That was his worst start of the year. Gave up 8 earned runs on 9 hits over 4 1/3. Struck out 4, gave up 4 home runs. Wildly uncharacteristic day for Zach Wheeler. I do not in any way expect that to repeat today. 31.4% hard hits, 85.8 miles an hour of exit velo, just 6.6% barrels. He is tremendous at limiting power, tremendous at limiting damage. A 2.73 ERA with a 3.47 xFIP underneath, a 26.7% strikeout rate, very good swinging strike stuff, sub-1 whip. Zach Wheeler, by all metrics, is a tremendous option. And he's going against an underperforming Cubs team with some strikeouts in the lineup. This is the projected version. See if we've got it confirmed. Doesn't look like. So the Cubbies, by and large, underperforming their season. There are some individuals that I still do like in this lineup overall, but not necessarily against Wheeler. And just doesn't look like a spot for Cubs. Does look like a spot for Wheeler. At 98 on DraftKings, he's legitimately a little bit underpriced. It's a pretty good bargain. 10-7 on FanDuel, you're paying full freight, but totally worth it. Number 2 on the board on both sites. Imanaga, not far off that mark. Number 5 on the board, 9,700 on FanDuel, and a very discounted 8,700 against a diminished version of the Phillies. They're still good. There's still a lot of quality in that lineup, but you can't say that that's not a diminished version of the Phillies at this point. Imanaga's come back to earth after his ridiculous start, but still just a 3.07 ERA, a 3.75 xFIP. You're right over there? What are you doing? 24.1% strikeouts, 4% walk rate, 14% swinging strikes. He's giving up some barrels in here, giving up a little bit of premium contact on a hefty launch angle. Could play into some home run upside for the Phillies, but the 2 best home run hitters not going to be in the lineup today. Not going to be in the lineup for a minute. They're both on the IL. I can see the upside. I can see Imanaga having a decent day. The Phils are fairly low strikeout with this version of the lineup. 18.5%. Couple of low, small samples in there. But overall, they're a good squad that's just taking a little bit of a hit right now. If you look at last year's numbers for the same group of hitters, that strikeout rate goes to 22%. It's probably somewhere realistically around, a 1 in 5, with Imanaga performing slightly better than that. So I can see the upside for him, and I think the price is great. 8,700 on DraftKings, great. 9,700 on FanDuel. He could believably be priced around $10K. If you're thinking about bats, I would probably take the Phillies and target Imanaga rather than taking the Cubs and targeting Wheeler. But again, both these teams sub-4 and pretty significantly sub-4 in terms of the run total. Not a great spot for bats. Nobody above halfway to the magic number against Imanaga from the Phillies. The only guy in the entire game halfway or better to the magic number is Cody Bellinger at 5.1 against Wheeler. Pretty limited. Bryson Stott, if this is the Phillies lineup, leading off 4,800, 3,000. Whether we get him lead off lefty-lefty is a question. I'd actually love to have this Phillies lineup right now. I don't know what this dog is doing right now. Joker, what are you doing, dude? Just chill. So if we get Stott leadoff lefty-lefty, he's a viable play. I mean, 20 stolen bases on the season, a 337 on base. If we're looking at the splits, 235, but 342 on base is fine. For what we need from Bryson Stott, he's been worse lefty-lefty, but not in a completely tragic sense as far as that on-base percentage goes. It's over 79 plate appearances. Really limits his power output. He's below league average for run creation against same-handed pitching so far this year, but we're only at league average 100 WRC plus anyway. So the diminishment probably not all that concerning. If you're willing to Bryson Stott anyway, you can go there, especially if he's leading off. Trey Turner, obviously a star, carried this team last night. 5 home runs, 10 steals on the season, a 149 WRC plus, 210 plate appearances of high quality output from Trey Turner. Nothing to worry about. 6,000, 3,500. If you're going to the Phillies, you absolutely include him. Alec Bowman for 58-35, 10 home runs, a very solid slash line, 188 ISO. His creative runs 33% better than average. He's hitting everything very hard. Puts a lot of balls in play, 13.5% strikeouts, 6.8% walks. Again, well-struck balls in play is really the name of the game. So I like Alec Bowman against the lefty here. It's just there are better lefties to target than Imanaga. Nicky Castellanos, mama's guy if he's hitting cleanup, 4,400, 2,900. He's got 11 home runs on the season, a 153 ISO. Maybe you pick off some home run upside against some premium contact that Imanaga's allowed this season. And Mundo Sosa, 3,600, 2,700, a playable part, multi-position eligible on both sites. 270, 331, 467, 125 WRC plus, a 197 ISO. Has hit the ball very hard this season. He's an interesting infielder. There's just better days probably to stack the Phillies overall. Just not a day we're really looking to load up on Phillies bats. Whit Merrifield is a mix and match part at best at this point. 3 homers, 7 steals is the only quality to talk about over his 156 plate appearances. Over time, historically, we've seen good seasons from Merrifield for medium quality power with some stolen bases, but it's been a minute and he really hasn't performed this year. Christian Pache, Rafael Marjan, Johan Rojas at the bottom of the lineup. At best, mix and match parts. Rojas is the only regular down there. 234, 272, 297 with a 62 WRC plus. At least has stolen 15 bases, but that's about all you're getting out of him. So it takes 3 spots kind of out of the lineup at the bottom here. Top 6 and really for me, top 5. Pretty thin lineup for the Phillies today. For the Cubs, I really just don't like targeting Zach Wheeler. And honestly, I don't dislike these Cubs on an individual basis, but I'm going to get to a team that's performing better a lot of times if I'm looking to target Wheeler. So pretty limited option. You do get Belly halfway to the magic number. He's got 9 home runs on the season. You do have some power stretched through here. Seiya Suzuki's got 11. Ian Happ has 11. A lot of on-base skills for these guys. It's a wonder that they're underperforming as much as they are. This core guys are the only guys creating runs in a positive sense, but there's some good hitters in there. Those are the guys that I'm referring to when I say I like some of the individual bats. You can see some of the double-digit barrel rates, some respectable hard hit numbers in there. The ability to get on base has never left this group of hitters. They're just not completing things. They're not delivering the full sequenced innings, but there is power here. There is some stolen base upside, which is really challenging matchups-wise. Nico from the top spot getting on at a 330. Has 14 stolen bases, but just a 96 WRC plus. Michael Busch has 10 home runs, a 358 on base, a 129 WRC plus with a 185 ISO. He's been very good. Fills 3 positions for just 26. 38 at first base is less than ideal on DraftKings, but he's very playable. He's also a 32% strikeout guy so far this season. Pretty good target for Zach Wheeler. Belly, close to where he's been over time for premium contact, but he succeeds without premium contact in a lot of senses. 270, 329, 421 this year. Just a 151 ISO, but 9 home runs, 4 stolen bases, a 111 WRC plus. He's been okay, but he's underperforming last year's rebound pretty significantly. Suzuki, tons of premium contact. 11.7% barrels, 51.2% hard hits, 11 homers. Very, very good player. Just in a bad spot. Bad spot for power, bad spot for home run upside. So limiting factors against, but if you're going to Cubs, he's a top priority bat. Happ is very much a priority for me if I'm stacking Cubs. 12.5% barrels, 42.7% hard hits out of him, and still a tremendous on base, the ability to create runs. And, underperforming in some ways in terms of the triple slash overall, but a very good proven player in the outfield for a fair price. Chris Morel, tons of barrels and hard hits out of him as well. 15 home runs, but Sub Mendoza, 304 ISO, 304 on base, just a 94 WRC plus, just a 175 ISO. A very up and down player who's more home run or bust than anything, and you don't want to really throw that kind of a guy against Zach Wheeler. Dansby underperforming his talent and his career track record over 291 plate appearances. Still a lot of premium contact, but we're striking out a little bit more. We're walking a little bit less. There's a diminishment in most notably the on base and the WRC plus. A playable shortstop if you're going to Cubs, but nobody's priority. Pete Crow Armstrong, disappointing Sub Mendoza over 147 plate appearances. Miguel Amaya, just a low-end catcher. Sub Mendoza over 187. Crow Armstrong has stolen 15 bases and plays a hell of an outfield, just really limited at the plate so far. Needs some time. Zach Wheeler, Shodi Imanaga, really neither stack, but if you're going to stacks, if you're going to bats in this game, it would probably be the Phillies. Forgot we had that scrolling. William Carson saying the slate is pretty tough. Challenging slate. A lot of games where things go, kind of both ways. And I hate breaking it down that way. I like ones like the last one where it's like, all right, this is a little bit more clear cut. Like, these are the good things, these are the bad things. Like that Blue Jays Astros game, that one specifically, I could see going any different direction. Fortunately, we've got a lot of upside to talk about in this one with the Twins. Look at those home run marks. Right through the middle of the lineup. Bunch of guys over the magic number for home run upside. Let's see if we got the actual. Does not look like we have the actual confirmed lineup yet. Oh, yep, we do. Perfect. Just came out. Grab this. Our guy, Willie Castro. Interesting season out of Willie. See if I can find it real quick. Willie Castro, this is per that Cespedes Family Barbecue Twitter handle. Willie Castro has already become the first player in Major League Baseball history to appear in at least 20 games at second, short, third, center, and left field all in the same season. He's made 10-plus starts at all 5 of those positions, and he's pitched twice this year. And he has a 130 OPS plus. Pretty crazy season out of Willie Castro. Like the player, like the positional flex, like the cheap pricing, $4,500, $3,000, 7 home runs, 10 steals, a 131 WRC plus, a 175 ISO for a guy who's typically regarded as more of a contact hitter. Nothing not to like about Willie Castro. The pricing is low. He's been a big part of the the run creation machine here for the Twins. So love Castro out of the top spot. They lowered Carlos Correa's price on DraftKings. I'm not crazy, right? That came down by like $500 compared to where he was yesterday. Wasn't he at $5,400 yesterday? They had corrected that, unless I'm misremembering. A newly discounted again Carlos Correa, who is the home run pick of the day today at 11.67 in the home run model. He's slashing 310, 378, 510. He has a 200 ISO. He has 10 home runs. He has a 10% barrel rate with 47.8% hard hits, striking out just 17.6% of the time. He's got a 150 WRC plus. I don't get it. He's 35 on FanDuel. Even that is cheap. The fact that he went back down in pricing is absolutely fucking baffling on DraftKings. $3,900 for Trevor Larnach is really cheap. 15 in the home run model. Halfway again on top of the magic number. 8 home runs on the season, a 185 ISO, a 111 WRC plus, 10.2% barrels, 43.8% hard hits from the left side against, again, Cater Montero. 9.35 ERA, but a 3.67 xFIP in his one start, his 8 2/3 innings. A 28.2% strikeout rate is kind of effective. There is, as I said at the top of the show, there is a little bit of upside for that. In the minor leagues this season in AAA, he had a 24.1% strikeout rate over 48 1/3 innings in 13 starts, but he had a 13.4% walk rate to go with that. He had a 5.03 ERA and a 5.20 xFIP in AAA. He's only 23. That's not like a bad thing for his career. He might be fine. It's not like he's pitching at age 27 and providing those results at AAA. He's right along schedule age-wise. Last year in AAA, 42 innings, 4.93 ERA with a 4.86 xFIP, 25.8% strikeouts and 7.7% walks. That's a better overall result. 29.6% strikeouts, but 10.1% walks in 15 AA starts last year. Turned in a 4.93 ERA, but a 3.60 xFIP. 22 years old at AA in that one. Again, right around the average age. Not bad. So I do think there's a little slight smidge of strikeout potential around this pitcher for 4,000, considering that you're getting him as an actual starter. He pitched on May 29th, made the start, went 4 1/3 against the Pirates, struck out 5. There's that upside. Walked 1. But gave up 4 earned runs on 5 hits and 2 home runs. Only lasted 4 1/3, so obviously no win, no bonuses, no upside. And those earned runs probably wiped out most of your scoring. Even if it was 4,000, you're still pretty limited there. The next time out was just recently on the 26th against the Phillies. He pitched in bulk relief in that one. Took the loss. 4 1/3 innings, faced 20 hitters. Struck out 6. Again, Upside for that, 3 walks, a home run, 5 earned runs on 5 hits. Again, just kind of wipes out your score. That's 3 home runs against 39 hitters. Like I said, I had to go in and normalize that a little bit because all these guys who were in healthy mid-teens type numbers were in like the 20s if I just left it alone with his very, very small sample. He did not have similar home run issues necessarily in the minors. If we're just looking at a home run per 9 cents, which is what it's on here on graphs on the game log or on the stats board, whatever. Last year in 2023 in AAA, had a little bit of a home run issue when he first went to that advanced level. 1.71 home runs per 9 over those 7 starts, 42 innings. That's an aggressively high home run total. Just 0.93 home runs per 9 is not bad over 13 starts this year in AAA. And then it spiked to the 3 home runs he's allowed in the 2 outings in the show. So that's why I kind of cut it somewhere in between. And the Twins are still showing a ton of power. They're still showing a ton of upside. There's still pretty big opportunities. So love the Twins bats here. Totally enthused about getting them against Cater Montero. If you want to roll the dice at 4,000 on DraftKings, that's your decision. I don't really endorse it because I see the Twins just dropping some runs on his head and blowing up any kind of scoring he could do for you there. But you are getting a pitcher who's starting the game at a cheap hitter price with some strikeout potential. This Twins team is not bad for strikeouts, just 19.9% across this lineup. So, you take the good with the bad there at that price. I don't think you throw that dart on FanDuel. I really don't. It's, even at $6,000, there's a better $6,000 option, and he's on the other side of this game. Continuing on with the Twins lineup, a surging Byron Buxton is priced only at $4,400, $3,100 across sites. He's got 8 home runs. He's up to a 203 ISO, a 121 WRC plus. Not too long ago, just like 2 weeks ago, I was saying like, damn, Buxton's really got to get it going. Imagine how good this team would be now if Byron Buxton actually started hitting. Here we are. 10.3% barrels, 46.5% hard hits. He's kind of back-ish, which means he'll probably get injured and miss the next 4 weeks or whatever. But right now, in the lineup, cheap pricing, love the Buxton play today, especially if he's hitting cleanup. Even if he's back down lineup, totally playable, but I kind of like him in that cleanup spot, and I'm hoping that's where he hits. Carlos Santana, 4,000, 2,900 for a guy with 12 home runs against a pitcher who's, at least potentially got a home run issue. 185 ISO, creating runs 18% better than average. 251, 329 on the front end of the slash line. Doesn't really strike out, never really has. Love Carlos Santana for 4,000, 2,900. It's just, I do have better first base options from a lot of other teams when I'm stacking this team, especially if I'm looking like with my multi-position eligibility there, a shortstop here and then 2 outfielders. I don't necessarily want to go directly to first base with that next play. I want to leave a high-end player at first base from my other stack, but Carlos Santana is very cheap and very, very playable. So like if you're building multiple twin stacks, if you build 10 twin stacks today, Carlos Santana should be in at least half of them. Jose Miranda for 37.29, 296, 339, 482. Again, against a very gettable pitcher. He's got 8 home runs on the season and a 186 ISO, and that's from a guy who is typically more of a line drive oriented player, low strikeout, low walk, put a lot of balls in play with good contact rates behind it. He's delivering a hell of a season, over 245 plate appearances for this team. Another big key in their just run creation engine, their sequencing, everything they've been doing well. 10.42 for him in the home run model. So again, nice stretch of power right there. 9.91 in the home run model, just short for Max. If Max was hitting cleanup, he would be above the magic number as well. Just a little bit limited by that lineup spot, but 4,200, 2,700, 6 home runs on the season, a 157 ISO, and 98 WRC plus. He's underperformed, but Max Kepler is a dynamite lefty power bat. 24 home runs last year, a limited year in 2022. That was an oddball year. Year before that, 19 homers in 490. Another limited 2020, but that was over 196 plate appearances in that weird COVID year. 36 home runs in 596 opportunities back in 2019. Max has a lot of pop in that left-handed bat. He is not done yet. Zip these back up real quick. And then Christian Vasquez and Austin Martin are in the lineup at the bottom of the lineup. Martin's held down a pretty decent roll. 269, 331, 380 at the bottom of the lineup. A homer, 6 stolen bases, a 105 WRC plus. He's a mix and match play at best. 2,400 outfield and second base on FanDuel. 2,800 same positioning on both sides. You can get in there and use him, but do you really want a positional blocker from the bottom of the lineup for Willie Castro, who does a lot of the same things at a higher level from the top of the lineup? Probably not all that often, but he will be lower owned and he is lower cost. Vasquez is just at best a dart throw at catcher, and he's really not even that anymore. 207 on base, a 28 WRC plus over 167 chances. Pretty thin. So David Festa, again, a top 100 prospect. Now, you can see just 8.7% strikeouts in his 5-inning debut. That wasn't great. As I mentioned, that was a 2-strikeout game. Struck out 2, walked 1, gave up a homer. Gave up 5 earned on 7 hits over 5 innings against the Diamondbacks. Not a great outing. He did have in 14 starts, 59 2/3 innings in AAA this season. 24 years old, so getting out to the outer edge of where you want to be at AAA, but still, for a pitcher, that's not a terrible AAA age, terrible minor league age. 59 2/3, 14 starts, 35.1% strikeout. He doesn't have great command. He has some walk issues, 9.7% walks to go with that. Last year, over 80 innings in AA, he had a 30.4% strikeout rate with a 9.6% walk rate. The AAA ERA is 3.77 this year, and the xFIP is even better at 3.15 in AA in that sample last year. It was 4.39 with a 3.65 xFIP. Kid's a good pitcher. He cost $6,700 on DraftKings against the Tigers. He cost $6,100 on FanDuel against the Tigers. This is the exact same situation that we had with Davis Daniel last week. It does not mean by any means that David Festa, whose name I had to just glance at to remember, that's how low end we're talking, does not mean he's going to go out there and repeat that performance that Davis Daniel did, because he went out and Daniel threw 8 innings in that game. Nobody was expecting that. Ended up with 8 strikeouts, I believe. But a good quality day, 6 innings, 6 innings, even 5, even on FanDuel, I'll take with a big shot at a win bonus as long as he gets through those 5 innings with some strikeout upside going up against the Tigers lineup, this projected version of which has a 23% strikeout rate. For those prices, absolutely fire away. Really like the Festa play here. Like stacking him with the Twins for a little bit of correlated help me get to my win bonus kind of a play. Very, very strong SP2 option on DK at 67. I like Festa better than I like John Gray. Probably at this point better than I like Kramer. We'll get to that one again in a little bit, but we might have a little bit of a depth issue with Kramer. You're paying more for Kikuchi. You're paying more for Pepio, who I do like. Davis Daniel himself against that Oakland team. That's an interesting comp. Right? Do I want to pay $800 more for the guy who just beat this Tigers team last week, or do I want to attack the same Tigers team with a different pitcher for the same price, or for the same low price that guy was at last week? Davis Daniel went up to 75. So I think Festa makes a ton of sense as at least in the conversation for top value arm of the day. If you're playing the Tigers against, which, it's viable. If you build a big position of Festa, you should probably hedge with a few Tigers stacks at least. Your top bat is easily Riley Green in that lineup, 5,300 across sites, 15 home runs, a 224 ISO. His created runs 32% better than average. Has a very solid 12.8% barrel rate with 47.2% hard hits, 8.32 in the home run model. He's a very, very good player. He just has very little support in this lineup. Wensil Perez off the top, 3 home runs, 6 steals, and 252. He's been all right. Has been really contact focused, very limited barrels, very limited hard hits. Doesn't strike out a ton. Draws a few walks. Could increase, if he's going to lead off, he needs to increase the walks, push the on base a little bit. He's dead at league average on by WRC plus. He's mix and match quality from the top of the lineup. If he's leading off, he's better. If he's hitting 6-7 somewhere, he's a lot more limited. Matt Vierling, the only other player above average for WRC plus. Oh no, Carson Kelly as well down the bottom of the lineup as a backup catcher. But the only realistic other guy above the WRC plus line right now is Vierling. He's hit 10 home runs this year. Little outburst of power, which wasn't necessarily expected. 10.2% barrels and 43.7% hard hits. Buying a little bit of results there, but you're not paying a tax for it, so it's all right. 4,100, 2,900. If you're targeting Tigers bats, he's probably priority number 2. It's probably Green, then Vierling, and then make your way through the rest of the dregs here. Mark Canha still getting on base at a 331 clip. In my opinion, should be leading off. Limited, though, in his overall production this season. Just 224 on the average front. Just 6 home runs and 4 steals at 95 WRC+. the veteran has been kind of meh this season, but I think where we see the kind of surge is after he gets traded to like the Braves or something. Then he'll be good again. As Lou Bob showed us last night at the end of that White Sox Guardians game, if you saw that. White Sox Guardians? I think that's what it was. Lazy can of corn to center field with a runner on third base. Didn't even make the throw in the ninth inning with the winning run at third base. Caught the fly ball, didn't even make the throw. Disappointing to see something like that from a star caliber player, but at the same time, I kind of get it. You know, it's a really challenging spot, but we could be seeing a little bit of that from a guy like Connor as well. Just like, why am I on this fucking team now? What do I have to do? How can I get myself out of here? Gio Urshela just not all that good. 237, 281, 300 has never really been much of a hitter. Colt Keith is supposed to be a good hitter, but has not been. 229, 277, 313, .084 ISO. No longer a member of the Dynasty team. Picked up Tariq Skubal. He was part of the package that went to EMAC for Tariq Skubal. As I mentioned the other day, Bryce Turang was in that boat in a trade with EMAC a couple years ago, and obviously Bryce Turang is like a star caliber second baseman now. So speaks to good things in the future for Colt Keith, but right now he's just a cheap mix and match option at best. Justin Henry Malloy has power on display, 4 home runs at 209 ISO over 77 plate appearances, 12.8% barrels. It's all we're getting so far, and he's got a 37.7% strikeout rate in that same sample. Mix and match piece for a little bit of power upside, 4.89 in the home run model. Zach McKinstry and Carson Kelly are mix and match quality at best. McKinstry at least gives you 4 positions for 24 on FanDuel, 28 at shortstop. You can do better on DraftKings. Kelly is 155 plate appearances. He's giving you 5 home runs, a 105 WRC plus, 45.8% hard hits. Once upon a time, he was supposed to be a pretty good hitting catcher. It just never really materialized. Now, hitting 9th for the Tigers, not really the spot I want to die on, the hill I want to die on. Twins bats way up there. David Festa. Some Tigers darts. No love for Kader Montero from me, but I get it if you want to roll the dice on DraftKings. Again, that 12 for 4,000, you're not far off of most of these guys. So I get it on DraftKings. On FanDuel, I just like some of the similar. I like the other guy in this game a little bit better. Again, it's not crazy far off. He does have a little bit of strikeout stuff. I just think the Twins are going to beat him. So it's a DK play only for Montero for me. Rays, Royals. Pretty good pitching matchup here as well. Royals lineup is in. Guess who's leading off? Give you one guess that you don't even need because he leads off every damn day, even though that is not his skill set. Castellanos batting cleanup. Mama's locking Phillies. I don't know where you're getting the I told you from, Mamba. Castellanos was in the cleanup spot in the projected lineup. Like, that's still the projected version. But yes, you did call it. They listened to you, yeah. You definitely did call it. But so what's the upside? They win when he hits cleanup? Is that what you're clinging to there, or you just like the hitter? What I don't like for the Phils today is just the matchup against Imanaga. It's a tough spot. Oh, you said it yesterday. All right. Okay. Credit where credit is due then. So Michael Wacha pitching fairly well. 3.91 ERA, a 4.08 xFIP. Not bad difference between. 9.8% swinging, decidedly average. 25.3% CSW, a little below average. 20.5% strikeout rate, slightly below average. But limits power, limits premium contact, and home runs pretty effectively. A capable quality veteran arm for 7,000, 8,500 against a fairly limited, mostly scuffling Rays team. I do think you could do worse than Wacha on this slate. I think he could get you there sometimes. I greatly prefer it at 7,000 on DraftKings to 8,500 on FanDuel. I think that's a bit of a misprice. Makes it a little bit rough on FanDuel. Could get you there, but as you can see, he's down toward the bottom of this list of pretty much same types. So I don't love it. He'll probably be pretty low owned by comparison to a lot of the other names on the slate. 5 1/3 in his last start, just 1 earned run, but 7 hits against Cleveland, struck out 6, walked 2. Just 1 earned run on 3 hits over 5 against Texas in his previous start. 5 strikeouts, 1 walk, gave up a homer, but nothing else. Had a brief stretch where he was going 6 or 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times this year out of 14 starts. So half the time he's completed the sixth. A pretty good run of quality, though. I mean, has not given up more than 2 earned runs since May 4th. May 4th, he faced Texas, went 3 2/3, gave up a tragic 7 runs, struck out 3, walked 1, 9 hits. That one and the game before that where he gave up 4 earned, and then one a few weeks before that, all the way back on April 12th, he gave up 5. Every other start is 2 or fewer. So you're just looking at 5-6 innings, the ability to limit the run scoring, not a tremendous strikeout upside. The Rays do have a lot of strikeouts in this lineup, though, so maybe it could be a sneaky Michael Wacha quality day. He's got the ability to find bigger strikeout totals against teams like this. The last time he faced the Rays, back on May 26th, he gave up 2 earned runs on 3 hits. He went 6, booked the quality start, took the loss, but got the quality start, struck out 7, walked 1. I could see a repeat of that performance. Again, just 85 on FanDuel, not totally comfy from the mid-range. 7,000, I'm warming to this on DraftKings at price. That's not awful. Royals have a decent shot at winning this game. They're at a 4.05. It's actually pretty even up in Vegas. That's because Pepio's good on the other side. You can see the strikeout total for Pepio is excellent. 28.7% strikeout rate. 12.4% swinging. 29.4% CSW. 118 marked by Stuff Plus is one of the best on the board. He is a talented young pitcher. Just run into some power, run into some downside. Bumps in the road along the way as he grows as a pitcher. It's kind of what they expected from him this year. Had a 3 home run game against the Braves 3 starts back that was preceded by a 2 home run game against the Orioles. In the Orioles game, he actually struck out 9. He gave up 4 earned on 9 hits, but struck out 9 in that game. The Braves game was a little bit worse. He only went 4 2/3, 5 runs on 6 hits, 3 home runs, struck out 4 and walked 3. Came back with a bumpy one over 3 1/3. Did that get rain? Or was he just inefficient? I think he was just inefficient in that one. 3 1/3 against the Pirates, 3 strikeouts, 4 walks, gave up 2 earned on 3 hits, faced 18 hitters. I don't think that got rained on, but I might be wrong. 8 strikeouts in the bounce back against Seattle. In his most recent one, 5 1/3, just 1 earned, 1 hit, 2 walks. He's got more than enough stuff to beat the Royals on the right day. It's just they are a fairly effectively low strikeout squad with some quality in it, some run creators in it, a little bit of power, a little bit of speed. I don't love targeting the Royals with I don't want to use the word shaky or anything like that because Pepio's better than that. Unproven, maybe, or just like developing but good young starter. At least not on FanDuel for 89. That's a bit of a stretch, I think. He projects out fine, but by comparison to some of the other available talent on the board, I don't love it. At 71 on DraftKings is a different story. I think both these pitchers are very playable on DraftKings. On the Royal side, if I'm stacking them up, Bobby Witt, Vinny, Sal Perez, still my top 3 bats in that lineup. Seeing a little bit of power out of those guys, given the premium contact that Pepio's allowed. Again, 10.1% barrels on nearly a 20-degree average launch, 41.6% hard hits, and 90-plus miles an hour of exit velo. That explains the 3.81% home run rate. That could honestly be a little bit higher. He's just good at missing bats when he's not giving up that contact, so it keeps it in check somewhat. But some happenstance there that could easily jump up over 4 and into the mid-4s. So some believable talent on the Royal side. Witt has a 9.62 in the home run model on 14.6% barrels, 48.8% hard hits. He's turned that into 13 home runs at 228 ISO. He's also stolen 22 bags. He's obviously tremendous, probably the top shortstop on this slate, or at the very least one of the top shortstops. Michael Garcia for second base and third base eligible at 4,500 on DraftKings. Just third base on FanDuel for 34. Better positioning on DK for your money. 5 home runs and 21 steals, but we're down to 229, 281, 338. 72 WRC plus. One of these days, Casey's going to wake up and get him out of that spot in the lineup. Vinny Pasquantino, 13.5% strikeouts, 46.9% hard hits. Those things just go together well. A 186 ISO, a 105 WRC plus, up to 10 home runs. The increase in a lot of these numbers has already begun. We've seen it over the last few weeks. We've been talking about it all season. I still think we're going to climb If he continues to do this and this, the rest of this is going to continue climbing, and that total of home runs is going to go up, and that's going to be above a 200 ISO, and that's going to be 115 WRC plus. He is going to be even better than he's been. 4,400, 3,200 is very cheap at first base. Sal Perez for 5,000, totally playable catcher on DK. 3,400, you can play him at catcher at first base util on FanDuel. 14 home runs, a 190 ISO, creating runs 23% better than average. Michael Massey is a quality lefty bat to throw at Pepio, 4,200, 3,100. Makes okay contact. 283, 299, 517 over his 129 plate appearances, 7 home runs at 233 ISO. Decent power bat from the left side for very cheap prices at second base. I like the positioning. I like the player. I think he makes for a good fit with the rest of this Royal stack. And I like the way that you can use Kansas City and just kind of fill out your infield and then grab 3 premium outfielders from another team, or like, say you wanted to go like Soto, Judge, and then an outfield one-off like Ohtani or Jordan Alvarez or somebody. That's the key to like just bang. There's a really good team, fills out your infield with good bats at fair prices. Might be a challenging fit to actually use those one-offs that I named, but high-end outfield one-off, or a team with just 3 good outfielders. So the Royals are key to a lot of different creative kind of constructions, given where the quality is in this lineup. You do have outfielders who can hit for power. 8 home runs apiece for Hunter Renfroe and MJ Melendez. 174 and a 175 ISO, an 88 and a 71 WRC plus. Very limited in terms of the frequency of success. Renfroe's been on a bit of a tear lately, though. He's been hitting the ball a lot harder, delivering better results. So hopefully that continues. Those guys are mix and match quality outfielders. Very cheap pricing for the upside, though. Nick Lofton, Kyle Isbell, even lower end mix and match parts, just kind of spare parts, totally skippable down toward the bottom. So the true talent is the top 5, but you can mix in bolt-on parts with 6 and 7 in that lineup. On the Rays side of things, doesn't look like we've got it yet. Joey Ortiz to the IL, so he won't be in the Brewers lineup. No Rays lineup yet. You get Yandy off the top, 4,100, 3,200 across sites. It's a respectable price for previous seasons of Yandy Diaz for sure. He's up to a 107 WRC plus, 270, 325, 384. We're improving slightly, but slowly. 14.5% strikeouts, 7.3% walks is not tragically far off the marks from last year, but the walks are down. Strikeouts also down, but the walks being down is kind of critical because a lot of his game relies on being on base, helping to create runs. Just a lower end season overall from Yandy, even in the contact department. 48.8% hard hits is terrific on its own. It's kind of in line with 2 years ago, but it's way down year over year. But he's cheap. He's playable against Michael Wacha for sure. Brandon Lau, lots of power upside. He's got 7 home runs, a 236 ISO in his 143 plate appearances. The front end of the triple slash we don't worry about with this hitter. We're just looking for power from Brandon Lau. A lot of strikeouts in his bat, but a lot of upside for home runs. 14.8% barrels and 43.2% hard hits. When he's in the lineup against a medium strength righty, you can always play Brandon Lau. So if he falls by the wayside public ownership wise, there's a little bit of sneaky upside there. Creating runs 23% better than average in his partial season. Isaac Paredes, we've talked about quite a bit on this show throughout the season so far. 13 home runs, a 141 WRC plus, a 197 ISO. It's been tremendous for the better part of 2 seasons now. 4,400 is kind of inexplicably low on DraftKings. 3,300 is pretty low on FanDuel. Speaking of lows, Josh Lowe, 3,700, 2,900. Had a really good year last year. Has been pretty average over his 128 plate appearances this year. Does have a nice 190 ISO, but dead on average for run creation. 5 homers and 4 steals. He's a mix and match piece. He has made good contact, but high strikeout, he's all right. You can definitely put him into a lineup. If you're building Rays stacks, he's very cheap for what his talent ceiling is. So you are getting him at a discount. 3,700 is very cheap for the upside on DraftKings. 2,900 is cheap enough on FanDuel. Randy Arozarena, by that same token, I know that he has underperformed expectations this year. We're still sub-Mendoza, 196, 305, 353. Just a 157 ISO, just a 96 WRC plus. 8.3% barrels, 42.2% hard hits. A little bit of quality there. Still walking 11.4% of the time. It's okay. 11 home runs, 10 stolen bases. We're still kind of on track for a 2020 season, even with as disappointing as everything has been. He's very, very cheap. All of the struggles are cooked into these prices at this point. This is a very high-end multi-category contributor over the past few seasons. I don't think he just lost all of his talent. So if you're going to the Rays, you're absolutely including Otto-Sarena at these prices. Richie Palacios is a mix and match quality, 4 home runs, 13 steals, a 105 WRC+. Gets on base at a decent clip, 345 on base. Not a bad option for cheap pricing with multi-position, second base and outfield with third base eligibility also on FanDuel. Jose Siri in the outfield, 35, 3,000, has 11 home runs, 8 steals. A mixed bag of quality in terms of the triple slash 214, 295 on the front end is less than ideal. But a 201 ISO, a 105 WRC+, and excellent premium contact skills. Definitely goes into lineups more often than not if you're stacking Rays, but not a priority. Or not like a draw to the Rays stack, I'll say. Ben Rortvedt, Taylor Walls, mix and match parts at the bottom. Rortvedt's turned in a good 175 plate appearances, but overall he's not much of a hitter. I guess it's pitching up top. It's another four corners game, and it's kind of like the Blue Jays and the Astros, where it's like I could see any one of these kind of succeeding. Both pitchers, both teams, I could definitely see succeeding. I think more often than not, though, the feel and the projection, it's just another game that kind of drops into the middle, given where those totals are. Pepio has an okay day. Waka has an okay day. Neither one breaks the slate. Both give up a couple of runs. Both teams score a couple of runs, but don't break the slate. That kind of a day is very, very much in play from this game. But there are good mix and match options with some star caliber hitters and a bunch of good, middle of the road types at very, very fair prices against somewhat gettable pitching. So again, very even up type game. If I had to rank it, I'll go Royals bats, Ryan Pepio, Michael Waka, just on the strikeout upside, and then Rays bats. But those four things are awfully close to one another. Hit the like button if you haven't. Hit the subscribe if you're not already subscribed so you get notifications when we go live and all that other stuff that you're supposed to say on YouTube. Yada, yada, yada. Check out our sponsors over at acemind.io. Those guys rock. Great sim tools, great optimizer. Promo code rotoscouts all in caps gives you 20% off your first month. Let me grab a link to the Discord. If you're not in our Discord already, hop on in. Not only do we have lively MLB discussions both before lock and then lamenting things we did or did not play after lock, but we've also got a killer basketball channel that is focused entirely on WNBA slates that I'm not even really a part of outside of jumping in and telling people not to talk politics in there. But those guys have been absolutely murdering the WNBA this year. So there's great stuff in there. There's a lively esports channel that I very rarely even check out. So God knows what's going on in that channel, but I know there's a lot of chatter in there. So there's a lot of activity in the Discord. So if you're not in Discord, I encourage you, and I just invited you in the chat there. Click that link and join our Discord and hang out with us. Coors Field game. Don't think we need either one of these pitchers. Colin Ray is typically, for me at least, a target for bats, given that 4.59 xFIP, given the fact that he gives up a bunch of home runs, a bunch of premium contact, a fly ball trajectory. I don't see it for Colin Ray, even at 6,400 on DraftKings, 7,400 on FanDuel. I gave him a little bit of faith in just getting through some innings, which is where even that much of a projection comes from. And I could easily have given him less and undercut that projection if I just left it alone. But I wanted to at least make it a realistic number of innings, because even if he gives up a few runs, he'll probably, more likely than not, pitch at least a couple of few innings. Model didn't necessarily see it that way. Dakota Hudson on the other side, innings are somewhat realistic. The ability to check the Brewers' home runs is where I get a little bit concerned about that Brewers stack. But it's not like Dakota Hudson's good. It's not like Dakota Hudson has any ability to prevent runs. It's just 7.3 degree average launch, 2.45% home runs, 5.8% barrels. And those are, as we've looked at every time he's pitched this season, sustained traits over time. Right? Low launch, 2.5% home runs. Low launch, 1.5% home runs. Elevated ERAs each of these years. Elevated xFIP numbers each of these years. Extremely low strikeout. Extremely high walk. He's a terrible pitcher. In no way should you play Dakota Hudson. Not for 5,000, not for 6,300, not on DraftKings, not on FanDuel, not against the Brewers. The one concern I have is you can see the Brewers, the only person above even halfway, three people halfway to the magic number. 5.23 for William Contreras, 5.23 for Willy Adames, and 6.43 for Rhys Hoskins. Christian Yelich just short of halfway to the magic number. Against a lot of other pitchers on the Colorado Rockies in this ballpark, these would be closing in on double these marks. So there's a little bit of concern about just the upward trajectory toward a ceiling score for the Brewers. If the course field dynamics out from the size of the ballpark and extra base hits and everything don't fully come into play, then you do need that big blast. And if you don't get it, in a lot of ways, they can fall short of the mark. None of this is to say that the Brewers are a bad stack. They're the top stack of the day. They make the most sense to just, if you've got money, spend it on Brewers. They're at 6.5 implied runs. Monster opportunity. It's just a little bit of a limiting home run factor. They absolutely could hit home runs against Dakota Hudson. Nobody's saying they can't. He gave up no home runs in his last start, but he only went 5 innings, gave up 5 earned on 6 hits, struck out 3, walked 5. That's a pretty typical Dakota Hudson start. That was at the White Sox. In his last home start against the Washington Nationals, he lasted just 3 innings. Struck out 0, walked 2, gave up 8 earned runs on 11 hits, including 2 home runs. That game, again, is totally on the board. I just do always have to mention that he's a ground ball-oriented pitcher. But a couple times this season, 3 times this season, he's given up 2 home runs in a game. So we're all about the Brewers' bats. We're also all about the Rockies' bats on the other side, though, because, again, Colin Ray, totally gettable on the other side. Home run, just 2 earned on 3 hits over 5 1/3 in his last game. 8 strikeouts. It was actually a pretty effective day against the Cubbies. Start before that, gave up 2 home runs, 5 earned runs on 6 hits to the Padres at San Diego, which is more of a pitcher's park. Had a 3 home run game against the Yanks early in the season, another 2 home run game against the Orioles. Handful of single home run games. It's been less tragic this year in terms of the power allowed for Ray. Last year he was at 4.45 on what is a lower barrel rate, more hard hits, slightly higher exit velo. But you can see we're way below average by Stuff Plus. The xFIP significantly higher than the ERA. Very targetable with what I'm going to continue harping on is an improved Rockies lineup. More interesting bats in this lineup now. Starting with the Brewers, though, price 2 rank from the top, William Contreras. This is still the projected version. Let's see, we got the, doesn't look like we got the confirmed in yet. Assuming it's the typical top end, 2 rank's a terrific option. 28 stolen bases, 287, 351, 412. Creating runs 18% better than average. Low strikeout, decent ability to draw a walk, put the ball in play, whatever he needs to do. 55 is fair. Even if this wasn't a Coors game, I wouldn't really have that much issue with 55-38 for the quality that Terang's turned in this year. Might be, arguably $200-300 high, but that's just the Coors tax, if nothing else. So totally happy with those prices for 2 rank from the top. 61-38, not crazy far off the mark for William Contreras, especially where you have to play catchers. 10 home runs. He's one of the better hitting catchers in baseball. 292, 353, 445. His creator runs 26% better than average. 49.8% hard hits. The premium contact over the last 3 seasons plus has been extreme. William Contreras is very good at the plate. 63-45 for Christian Yelich, even below halfway to the magic number for home run upside. I don't need home runs from Christian Yelich. I just want doubles and on base, getting on base at a 403 clip. He's got a 171 ISO. He's driven in a fair amount of runs. He's scored a fair amount of runs. He's stolen 19 bases. His creator runs 55% better than average while maintaining his usual quality of extremely hard hit balls. Love Christian Yelich. Don't mind paying a tax to get to him. 56-39 is a little bit high for Willy Adames. It's not crazy, though. 13 home runs, 10 steals, 239, 328, 413, a 111 WRC+, plus, just a 174 ISO. Is a little bit out of line maybe with the barrels at 10.3. Only 38.3% hard hits, though. I guess that explains that difference. Technically, the barrels are actually down a little bit this year, but his results have been pretty good. Had a good start to the season, too. No issues with going to, obviously he's one of the top shortstop options on the slate, hitting in Coors Field, hitting cleanup every day in this lineup. Garrett Mitchell for $4,000, $3,000, totally playable given the pricing. Very cheap. It's just 8 plate appearances this year. Over 73 last year, he hit 3 home runs, stole a base, 200 ISO, creator runs 3% better than average. Over 68 the year before, he was even better. 311, 373, 459, 136 WRC+. Plus. Extremely small samples, but a talented guy. Rhys Hoskins, tons and tons of power. Good amount of premium contact in terms of barrels. Limited for hard hits. That should be well above 40, given just who this hitter is. You can see it right here, 11.1% barrels, 44.2 before his missed season last year. But still a very effective power bat, 6.43 in the home run model, 11 home runs on the season, 179 ISO. Those numbers could improve as the second half goes on. Sal Frelick, contact-oriented hitter, steal some bases, get on, provide correlated scoring. Just at the league average for WRC+, but a playable part in this lineup. Joey Ortiz is not going to be in the lineup. He just got put on the IL, so we'll see what we get there. It's probably Andrew Monasterio again, who would probably hit 9th, and maybe Churrio moves to 7. Frelick hits here. We'll see how they configure the lineup. But at the bottom here, Jackson Churrio, always worth talking about. Tons and tons of skills. 41.8% hard hits is decent. 23.4% strikeouts for a 20-year-old is not terrible for a kid with the idea that he's underperformed his rookie season, which is not untrue given a 248, 292, 393, just a 92 WRC plus, a 145 ISO. But he has hit 9 home runs. He has stolen 9 bases. He has been on a complete tear over the last, call it month. Let's see if I can get to it quick. Quick might have been an exaggeration. Last 30 days, Churrio has an 870 OPS, 15 runs, 15 RBIs, 3 homers, 2 steals in 74 plate appearances. It's a very solid 30 days. Hell of a player at the bottom of the lineup. If he climbs the lineup, even better. 3,800 is just way too cheap. Just buy the talent. 3,300 on FanDuel. It's the exact same thing. Just buy the talent that is a discounted price. If you had Jackson Churrio in the Oakland Coliseum for 3,800 on DraftKings, I would still be saying that's too cheap. He's at Coors Field today. That's a ridiculous price. Tons and tons of upside there. On the Rockies side, Charlie Blackmon, mix and match piece at the top of the lineup. Let's be honest about Charlie at this point. 327 on base, a 92 WRC plus, 4 homers, 5 steals. Totally skippable. Mix and match, bolt on part if you want him from the leadoff spot. He still doesn't strike out. He does put the ball in play. The quality is greatly diminished from what he once was, but he's playable. Brendan Rodgers for just 37 on DraftKings, 31 on FanDuel is downright interesting. 44.3% hard hits. 5.22 in the home run model is totally fine for a second baseman, for Brendan Rodgers. More to the point, 282, 325, 407 slug. Again, not a premium power bat, but 282, 325 on the front end of the triple slash is good for what Brendan Rodgers has been over the last couple of seasons. We're getting a little bit of output. It's just a 91 WRC plus, so it amounts to 9% worse than average for run creation. But he's been more interesting, and now he's facing Colin Ray today. I like the upside for Brendan Rodgers, where he might not get popular at those low prices. 51.37 for Ryan McMahon is a discount. 12.8% barrels, 52.8% hard hits. I get that he cooled off after his hot start. If you expected that hot start to continue the entire season for Ryan McMahon, you were fooling yourself. He's normalized. He's not bad. 269, 347, 456 is still a pretty killer slash line. 14 home runs, a 187 ISO, a 112 WRC plus. He's having a very good little year, and he's making better contact than he ever has. 5,100, 3,700, totally fair pricing. Elias Diaz, where you have to play catchers, only costs 4,500. Hitting cleanup every day for this team while slashing 307, 352, 439. 107 WRC plus. Not the best masher in the world, but low strikeout, low walk, a lot of balls in play at Coors Field. If nothing else, just fire away with him in home games. You don't have to play him on the road. Going up against Colin Ray today? Come on. Brenton Doyle, 49-35, 10 home runs, 20 stolen bases on the season. Give you killer counting stats. Over half a season, I'm sorry, but that extrapolates to a 20-40 season. Brenton Doyle is pretty good for counting stats. It's all we really care about. 264, 328, 424. 97 WRC plus could certainly be higher. 159 ISO could certainly be higher, but 9.1% barrels, 40.2% hard hits. Fire away with Brenton Doyle shares, particularly if he's lower owned than some of these other guys at price. Michael Talia, 11.76 to lead the team in the home run model. He hit 9 home runs in 147 plate appearances since getting recalled to the club. We've done nothing but talk about his power upside since he arrived. 242 ISO. Yeah, it's just a 69 WRC plus. He's 18 points below the Mendoza line. He's got a 245 on base. We're exclusively looking for home run upside. Bolt Talia onto the bottom of a stack that goes from Brendan Rodgers down, and you're doing the right thing. Nolan Jones, same thing. 4,800, 3,100. Cheap for a guy who, we'll look at this one last time. For a guy who went 2020 with a 297, 389, 542 slash, 245 ISO, and a 135 WRC plus over just 424 plate appearances for this team last year. This is cheap pricing for that guy. 48.3% hard hits, even with the underperformance in 166 plate appearances. Still kind of finding his footing for the season. He missed a lot of time. 3 homers, 3 steals, mediocre numbers here. It looked like he was tracking for popularity in the ownership numbers that I looked at, but if he's not, or even if he is, honestly, if you're stacking Rockies, absolutely belongs in your lineup, multi-position eligible on FanDuel. Get some good mix and match between outfield and first base over there. Less so on DraftKings, but everybody's at least where they belong. Jake Cave, Aaron Shunk at the bottom of the lineup. Mix and match pieces at best, but a lot of quality top 7, or at least 2 through 7, with apologies to Charlie Blackmon. Brewers bats, Rockies bats, neither pitcher. Is Lee in the lineup? He is slashing 329, 394, 635 with a 159 WRC plus over 94 plate appearances in AAA this season. Aggressively promoted. Started the season in the complex. Oh, no, he was in AAA last year. All right. So I get, what was he, hurt coming out of camp? He started this season in the complex, then went through A-ball. But he was AA in 2022, AA in 2023, AAA in 2023. Across the 2023 season, AA and AAA, he had 16 home runs, 7 stolen bases. Call it like a combined 270s, 330s, mid-4s, kind of a slash line. Interesting hitter. Switch hitter. Is he actually in the lineup? He is. He's hitting 8th. That's for the Twins, for people who don't know what the hell we're talking about. I'm going to go back real quick. Wait, so did I put the wrong Twins lineup in there when I was talking about that? Did I put it in and then never change it to the actual? I just took it off. That's probably what I did. I just took it off of, what'd you call it? So it looks like Lee is available on DraftKings, but not on FanDuel, which means I have to put him into the model, which I'll do later on. You don't need to sit here and watch me do that. I just read off his numbers at the dead min, and apologies for going through this lineup without realizing I had the wrong one. At the dead min, he is super interesting on DraftKings, given his talent level. Not available on FanDuel. Byron Buxton does drop to the 7 spot, which it makes him slightly less interesting. But what we gain is Max moves up to 6, and like I said, jumped above the magic number just by gaining 1 spot in the lineup. So now we've got even more power showing for the Twins lineup. Buxton was slightly diminished by dropping here, but it was from like 12 something down to almost 11, where Max was in the high 9s and moved up 1 spot and jumped to 10.32. So I'll take the upside there. I love the core from there to there, and on DraftKings, adding Brooks Lee to that equation, definitely pretty dynamite. So Twins look fantastic to me today. Really like that spot. Good call out there, though. I appreciate that. Mama saying, also to be clear, I was giving you credit, not saying I told you so. I know, buddy. Even if you were saying I told you so, everybody in this room right now has the right to say I told you so. Everybody in this room right now, this is a conversation, as I've said many, many times. This is not me here saying I know better than you do. It's a conversation. For people who don't know things and want to come here and just take it all as gospel, great. For people who are well-informed and know what the hell they're doing out there and they have just different opinions and contrary opinions, it is an open forum. So even if you were saying I told you so, buddy, that's what we're all about. So no worries. 7,500 for Davis Daniel. Totally fine. Happy to pay that on DraftKings. 91 feels a little bit steep on FanDuel. I do think he's moderately playable over there, given the opponent, given the success that we saw last week. But you can see he's just, kind of awkward price fit in amongst all these other guys at lower pricing, other than like Gavin Stone at a higher price. On DraftKings, it makes total sense because he's just similarly priced to all those options that surround him on the board, and he's got a terrific matchup against the A's. In that start against the Tigers, one more time, 8 innings, 8 strikeouts, 4 hits, faced 26 Tigers, no runs, no walks. It was tremendous. In 14 starts, 76 innings at AAA before that start, had a 24.3% strikeout rate, a 7.4% walk rate, 5.33 ERA with a 4.67 xFIP. I don't want to get too excited. I do think the kid's got talent. EMAC just swept them up in the Dynasty draft. I think he's on the board. I think he's going to see innings going forward. So it's a gettable spot. It's a much more playable spot here. I have real issues with where they priced him here. He projects out just fine. I didn't give him 8 innings to get to this projection. If he goes 8 again, I'll be pleasantly surprised. But I think he's super playable. Can't look at these numbers all that much because they're a little bit skewed. But the strikeouts were 1 in 4 type level against a team that has a 26-6. So call it like 1 in 4 strikeout upside again. Pretty decent spot for him, if nothing else. Joey Estes going the other way. 19.9% strikeouts, 6.1% walks. Both of those are pretty decent marks. He's given up some power. He's given up some premium contact on a very extreme fly ball trajectory. I think very extreme is pretty redundant, but an extreme fly ball trajectory. 5.24 ERA with a 4.75 xFIP. There's not a lot to love here. 10.5% swinging strike rate is all right. It's been pretty limited. There's no sample previously. For 6,000, 6,800, he's drawn a little bit of projection because there are certainly strikeouts and some underperformances in this Angels lineup. It's just a dart throw, and it's at best a dart throw kind of a play. I don't know that you get there at 6,800 on FanDuel. Probably not, especially considering there are cheaper, better looking value options on the board today on FanDuel. At 6,000 on DraftKings, you really only need something like what we got from him last time against this same Angels team that I referred to earlier in the show. He went 5 2/3, gave up 2 earned runs on 3 hits, walked 2, struck out 8. That's a great performance. For 6,000 on DraftKings anyway, that's good enough. You would have liked it to come with a win, which is certainly not out of the question here with his team facing Davis Daniel. So he's a dart throw with just a thin amount of value on him, but he's here on the board on DraftKings. I think he's playable. Third from the bottom of that group of same types, but he's in that group. If you're rostering bats, I probably prefer the A's. I think they're the better team. I think they're the better lineup overall. So I'd probably look A's bats against Davis Daniel ahead of Angels bats against Joey Estes. But I think both teams are at least in play from the cheap, low-end perspective. Starting with the Angels, Nolan Schanuel off the top, 34-27. Very limited hitter so far anyway. 11 points worse than average for run creation. 8 homers, but a pretty empty slash line over 316 plate appearances. Mix and match quality at best. Low strikeout, but not really making great contact. Not really seeing good results for being low strikeout. Luis Rengifo, second base and third base for 45 on DK. 3 positions for 32 on FanDuel. Absolute priority if you're going to Angels bats. A reasonable enough one-off, honestly, if you're not going to Angels bats, just given the multi-position and the quality of performance this season and in years past. 6 home runs, 22 steals, 319, 362, 448, over 266 chances. He's been pretty damn good this year, 130 WRC+. Taylor Ward has 14 home runs, a moderately effective slash line, a 114 WRC+, and a 193 ISO over 346. He's got excellent contact skills, moderate strikeouts with a fairly high walk rate. So for 44-32, he's probably your top priority bat in this lineup, but arguably 1-2. But it's one of those 2 guys. Again, I do think that Willie Calhoun should probably be leading off ahead of these 2 bats. It would be a more effective configuration of this lineup, but that's not what they're doing right now. Calhoun's just a hit tool player, get on base, provide some correlated scoring. He's doing that in small doses over 171 plate appearances, but it's at least nice to see him finally finding at least a bit of a maybe temporary home, but at least a bit of a regular home, Major League Baseball-wise, because he's always been a good hitter. It's just what else do we get out of him? And so far, that's pretty limited. The what else is not all that great. He only costs $3,270. If he's hitting cleanup and you're stacking this team, that is kind of a priority given the low cost. Logan O'Hoppe, catcher with a lot of power, 12 home runs, 200 ISO, 27% better than average for run creation, pretty decent slash line, 48.6% hard hits, 10.9% barrels. Nothing to dislike about Logan O'Hoppe. Zach Neto for just $38,300. Good counting stat production, 11 homers, 11 steals, and 304 chances. 185 ISO, 105 WRC+. plus. 300 on base could certainly improve, so could the average. But he's hitting the ball fairly hard. He's getting involved. He's providing good DFS results. So Neto's playable. Drury, a lot of home runs in his past. Not a lot of home runs in his 126 chances this year. Just 175, 246, 237. It's been really limited in a limited number of chances this season. Mickey Moniak is just really not that good at this point. And Joe Adell, good counting stat upside from time to time, but it's really difficult to nail down the day when you're going to get any of that. 13 homers, 9 steals, but 187, 249, 396. Not even a good slug. Decent ISO at 209. 12.6% barrels, 43.4% hard hits. It's just the results are so few and far between. He's difficult to play. On the A's side, again, I do like this side a little bit better. J.J. Bleday, not an uninteresting lefty off the top. 242, 323, 439 is all right, but a 197 ISO is very good. 11 home runs is pretty good in 348 chances from a player who's always cheap, who's never really popular. 19% strikeouts against 10.3% walks. He's created runs 19% better than average. 3,600 in the outfield on DraftKings, 3,000 on FanDuel. Relatively speaking, against the caps on each site, 3,600 is very low compared to 3,000 against the FanDuel cap. Miguel Andujar for $41.28, also effectively cheap. He's given us 295, 324, 386 over 139 plate appearances now. He's got previous seasons of decent results over time, just never was able to find a regular job. But anytime he's been in a lineup for a regular stretch, he's provided results. 41.28 is a good price for him if you're going to A's. He's not your top priority bat, but he's definitely in the mix for guys you should be paying attention to. Brent Rooker hit his 16th home run last night, 254 ISO, 143 WRC+. plus. Absolute masher of baseballs. Just comes with a lot of warts around the strikeout rate, but definitely could club one into the seats against Davis Daniel. Top priority bat in this lineup if you're going there. Shea Langoliers and Tyler Soderstrom both have a lot of power behind him. You can see all three of those guys above a 16% barrel rate right now. Two of them above 50% hard hits, with Langoliers not far behind. Soderstrom is a smaller sample of plate appearances so far. He only costs $3,260, and he's hit 7 home runs with a 203 ISO in those 145 plate appearances. So he's basically right on pace. If you double that, approaches this range, and if you double that, approaches that range. So they've got 3 quality power bats right there. It's just another case of what else you giving me. Shea Langoliers not giving me much average, not giving me much on base, not giving me much else outside of the power. But the power is nice from a cheap catcher. 3,800 where you have to play catchers is cheap for that much power upside. I do think Soderstrom in the long run is a better hitter than what he showed us here. But if we're just buying cheap power, I think there's upside there. And there's probably in the what else are you giving me, I do think there's more to come. So he answers that question a little bit. Geloff, 9 home runs, 9 steals, had 14 apiece last season. It's been pretty limited this year. Missed a lot of the first half of the season, but 260 plate appearances of pretty mediocre performance at this point. He's very cheap, 27-32 across sites at second base. It still does work, particularly if you're stacking this team. But the results need to start coming around sooner than later. The counting stats are fine, and you can always throw a dart at counting stats. Lawrence Butler, Brett Harris, Max Schumann, all pretty skippable at the bottom. Everybody's got 3 home runs. 2 of those guys are below the Mendoza line. Nobody's good at getting on base. Nobody's a positive run creator. It's like Geloff up as far as your priority bats in this lineup. That's not a bad 6-man group, though. At least, not bad for the Oakland Athletics over the last few years. You could do worse. They're very cheap. Nothing? Is nothing in play? I think DraftKings pitchers, either one of the pitchers on DraftKings for the discount, with a great preference for Davis Daniel against the A's than Joey Estes against the Angels. Neither pitcher really on FanDuel. Broken price. Not going to give you enough quality. A's bats above the Angels bats, but neither one is a priority. D-backs and the Dodgers. Oh, we did have that A's lineup. I think it's exactly what we looked at. I'm pretty sure it's identical. Doesn't look like we've got these lineups. So Christian Mena, another $4,000 pitcher on the DraftKings slate. He is still starting, right? Yep. So this guy, in 16 AAA starts this season, 82 2/3, 24.4% strikeouts, but a 10.4% walk, 1.63 home runs per 9, 4.90 ERA, and a 4.66 xFIP. Last year in AAA for the White Sox, just 4 starts, 19 2/3, 5.95 ERA, 5.70 xFIP. Before that promotion, he made 23 starts in AA for Chicago, 114 innings, 4.66 ERA, and a 4.27 xFIP. Had a 27.9% strikeout rate with an 11.3% walk. He's facing the Los Angeles Dodgers tonight. I really see no reason in the world to think that this kid's going to succeed. Neither does Vegas, by the way. 5.28 implied total for the Dodgers. Just looks like a spot where even at 4,000, like just go to the other $4,000 guy. Go to this guy against a slightly worse or I don't know how to put that right because I love the Twins today. A slightly less threatening on at least when you look at their jerseys, on name recognition, on team name recognition, and so on and so forth. Slightly less threatening Twins team. Slightly more believable for the other $4,000 guy. In truth, I don't think you play either $4,000 pitcher. But if I'm taking one, it's not this one. Gavin Stone for $8,500, $9,800. Another awkward price fit on FanDuel. Decidedly in the middle of that stretch of same pitchers. So the broken price just kind of puts him and Davis Daniel just a little bit further out of contention than they otherwise would be. I don't think the projections are necessarily wrong. I just think that the prices are. These guys are not quite as good as that. DraftKings got it closer to correct. 8,500 for Stone is not bad. He's got a 2.73 ERA, which is sparkling, but a 4.02 xFIP is a little bit more revelatory. 19.5% strikeouts against 7% walks is okay. It's not great. Certainly not anything to rush off and make sure that you have to roster. He's been good at limiting power, 4.9% barrels, just 12.2 degree average launch, 33.1% hard hits is terrific, 87.8 miles an hour of exit velo is very good, sub 2% home run rate is terrific, below average stuff plus rating. You take the good, you take the bad, and then the Facts of Life theme song pops into your head, and you almost sing it on a show in front of a bunch of people, but you don't. You plow forward and continue talking about this game. Diamondbacks on the other side. I think I like the Diamondbacks against Gavin Stone a little bit better than I like Gavin Stone on his own, but they're pretty limited as well today. So you're not seeing a ton of power upside from them outside of maybe Christian Walker and his weird proclivity for hitting home runs in the Dodger Stadium. 8.60 in the home run model doesn't reflect anything about the results in this stadium. He's just a good hitter with a lot of power going up against a medium quality pitcher. But Stone, again, has been good at limiting premium and contact and power this year. Last year, he had a little bit more downside over his 4 starts, 31 innings for home runs, but he was also striking out fury. He just wasn't fully formed yet. So I don't love the upside for Diamondbacks bats, but I don't feel the need to pay even the 85 on DraftKings, honestly. It's not as awkward as the FanDuel price is, but you can see, just look at the conditional format and look at the coloring. It stands out a little bit. This D-backs lineup, 21.3% strikeouts this year, 20.3% last year. Some quality bats in there, so I don't know. It is not a rush out and grab Gavin Stone day. Corbin Carroll off the top of the Diamondbacks lineup, 210, 301, 311. If you saw this coming, congratulations. I sure didn't. 2 home runs, 14 steals, ruining season-long teams around the country as a first-round pick. He's just been bad. There's no getting around it. He's been bad and has not shown much signs of life. There's a little bit of uptick over the last couple of months, but it's very limited even with the uptick. Ketel Marte, 8.14 in the home run model. He's hit 17 this year. He's got a monster 231 ISO, 140 WRC+. He's one of the top second basemen in the sport. Probably the top second baseman on this slate tonight, or close to. 5,300, 3,700. No reason in the world to not consider him if you're going to Diamondbacks. One of your top 2 priority bats in this lineup. Jock Peterson is cheap at 4,700 against a, again, middle of the road kind of a righty. 11.5% barrels and 47.3% hard hits for Jock. He's got 11 home runs at 222 ISO. He's also slashing 286, 378, 507. 150 WRC plus over 242 plate appearances now. Jock's having a really good year. He's just a platoon player. So you get games where he doesn't play all the time. If he was playing full time, maybe you see even better results. I advocate for playing him against lefties and see what happens. Christian Walker for 52, a little bit cheap. 36 on FanDuel, closer to the mark. 18 home runs, 221 ISO, 126 WRC plus. Loads of premium contact. We've talked about it a bunch of times. He traded a few strikeouts for better premium contact this season so far. Love the player. 41-31 for Lourdes Gurriel is a little bit cheap. He's hit 11 home runs this year. Triple slash is okay. The on-base needs to be better, but the average isn't tragic. Slug is about where it normally is. 152 ISO, a little bit down, but 102 WRC plus. Still the ability to hit the ball pretty hard. Low strikeout, low walk, so a lot of balls in play that are pretty well struck. That is a very low price on DraftKings. 31 on FanDuel, easily playable. It's an effective price here. It's a dramatic discount over there. Gabriel Moreno just has earned his discount at this point. Has really been disappointing this season. 232, 317, 345, a 90 WRC plus. Junior Suarez is going to be replaced in this lineup if he doesn't get his act together, and I mean quick, fast, and in a hurry. 3,300, 2,700 at third base. He's slashing 198, 283, 313, a 115 ISO, 6 home runs on the board this season, 72 WRC plus. Davison De Los Santos breathing down his neck. Alec Thomas, 3,200, 2,300. Sub Mendoza over 18 plate appearances. Has given us a little bit of quality in seasons past for counting stats anyway. 9 homers, 9 steals in 402 last year. 8 homers, 4 steals in 411 the year before. But a limited creator of runs, a limited contributor of regular quality. Geraldo Perdomo is a mix and match infielder from the bottom. The Dodgers lineup, 1 through 5. Assuming this is the 1 through 5, which it almost certainly will be. Pretty tremendous, pretty obvious, straightforward. Some good prices in there. Will Smith, 57.35. Freddie, 58.37. Teoscar down to 54 and 34 across sites. Teoscar especially pretty cheap by comparison. And then you get Andy Pages to help average down any costs. 4,2,900 for him is aggressively cheap against this pitcher. So I really like Pages. Obviously, I like Shohei Ohtani. I know I skipped him at the top because he's not discounted. 6,600, 4,800. You're paying full freight, but you're buying 27 home runs, 16 stolen bases, a 326 ISO, a 191 WRC plus. Shohei Ohtani is a tremendous hitter. 19.2% barrels, 60% hard hits. The only better hitter in baseball is Aaron Judge. Yes, I do mean that. Will Smith is a top catcher, 11.2% barrels, 43.3% hard hits, 11 homers, a 197 ISO on the season. Freddie up to 12 homers, a 206 ISO. Remember when people were like, oh my God, Freddie Freeman, it doesn't look quite the same. And I was like, and they put his pricing down, and then I just said, hey, calm down. The numbers aren't far off the mark. We'll be back for the power. It's going to come around. Here it is. Totally delivering. Full expectations on the season. No issues with Freddie Freeman. You're still getting $200 discount on DK and $200-$300 discount on FanDuel. Teoscar for 15.6% barrels, 49.1% hard hits, 18 home runs on the season. He's been an absolute beast for this team. He's high strikeout. He can put zeros in your lineup on the wrong day, but on the right day, he breaks slates. Love Teoscar's bat. Pages, 11.7% barrels and 42.5% hard hits. A 158 ISO, that's okay. Should be better given that premium contact he's making. 8 home runs and 270 plate appearances. He's provided good results for this team. Another high strikeout guy, but tons of quality, tons of upside. Jason Hayward, veteran lefty bat with a lot of hard hit. A lot of quality. He's got a 200 ISO over 134. 4 home runs, 3 steals. Limited in terms of the slash line, but a 105 WRC plus for a very, very cheap price. If you need a little bit of salary relief in this Dodgers lineup, Jason Hayward is not a bad way to find it. Miguel Rojas has been good over 164, but he's a mix and match infielder with a little bit of upside over 164 opportunities. In 423 chances last year was not very good. So, mixed. Gavin Lux, Kevin Biggio at the bottom. At least their names rhyme. They've got that going for them. Outside of that, their performances haven't been great. They're very, very cheap. You can move them around the board a little bit, at least with Kevin Biggio there, with multi-position on both sites. They're not positional conflicts with one another at best. Second base only for Gavin Lux. Both guys do have skills for collecting counting stats. They just haven't done it this year, or really at all in seasons past. So it's more on a belief, physical tools kind of a sense, and they're both very, very limited. They're cheap, so you can bolt them into lineups. If you're building 20 Dodgers stacks, they should each be in at least a couple of them, but they're not a priority. Dodgers bats. Way up top. Diamondbacks bats. Gavin Stone, but really only because of where he's priced. On talent, that might flip between those two, but those are close between those two, and I just wouldn't play Christian Mannett even for $4,000 on DraftKings. Michael Knack calling for the Judgy double dong against Andrew Abbott tonight. I love that upside. Absolutely makes a lot of sense to me. Michael Knack saying, can't believe I'm asking this chat, but last man in on FanDuel, Nolan Jones or Matt Olson? I love Jones. I got no issues going to Jones there. You're buying up Colorado. I do think he's going to be popular on that FanDuel slate. That's the one thing. Matty Olson, obviously a absolute monster of a hitter. But he's going up against Hicks, who is decent at limiting home runs, which is really what you're looking for when you play Matt Olson. So all things being considered there, I would probably just pivot into the Coors Field bat, and a pretty decent Coors Field bat at that. And my hope would be in that sense that the 7 spot in the lineup and some other considerations about, underperformance so far this year maybe renders Jones a little bit lower on than the projection I saw. So I would go Jones. I agree with chat. Dean Kramer, Logan Gilbert. Kramer, again, I expect these projections will come down by a few points. It'll be limited. I'm not going to go nuts with it, but this is the first start back, which I had forgotten after an injury absence. He made a few rehab starts, got up to 75 pitches in the most recent one. 85 pitches is probably your max. He could have a decent day on 85 pitches. I just don't love it on FanDuel at 8,600. You're probably going to fall short of your quality start, which you're probably going to need today with all the upside on the board. At 71, he would probably still be playable on DraftKings. He's a talented enough pitcher, 4.32 ERA and a 4.04 xFIP. The xFIP obviously a little bit better than the ERA. He's given up some premium contact and some power for sure, which is showing a little bit on the Mariners side, but they really, by and large, have not been great at finding home run upside. They've been striking out at a 27.3% clip. They don't get on base well or sequence or create runs. So there's still a little bit of lingering upside based on the cheap price for Dean Kramer on DraftKings. Last season, Kramer was a little bit better at limiting home runs. Had a 21.4% strikeout rate, 4.12 ERA with a 4.34 xFIP, 3.23 ERA with a 4.43 xFIP the year before, but was better at limiting premium contact and power. So, another pitcher where it's mixed results over time, but is good enough to beat this team that we've been targeting all year. I just worry we're probably only getting 5 innings, so it's DK kind of a play. Logan Gilbert, you play on either side. 112 and a third innings over 17 starts this year. Has completed the 6th inning. 1, 2, 3. In 9 straight starts. Only one of those was not a quality start. A 7 strikeout game, an 8 strikeout game, a 9 strikeout game in there. In his last 3, he went 6, gave up 2 earned runs to Minnesota, struck out just 3 and walked 0. Gave up a home run, 2 earned on 4 hits. Not a bad start at all. 8 innings of 4-hit ball, no runs. 6 strikeouts and a walk against Miami at Miami. It's a very gettable team, but a great start. 8 innings against Texas, 2-hitter, no runs, 9 strikeouts, no walks. Gilbert's got monumental upside, even against this Orioles team. They are very good, but we just saw them get limited by Mariners pitching last night, and I suspect they're going to see the same thing again. It doesn't fully check the Orioles. You can see at the top of the board, for example, Gunnar is still at a 13.48 in the home run model. There's no stopping him. 26 homers, 13 steals, 312 ISO, 176 WRC+, 13.3% barrels, 57.7% hard hits. The only 2 hitters in the league that have been better than Gunnar this season are Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani. He's on that list. He is that good. Shortstop, too. I mean, killer positioning for that kind of a player. Adley Rutschman, tremendous catcher, 56, 35, 15 homers, a great slash line, 131 WRC+. Ryan O'Hearn, just, again, 289, 349, 466, 10 home runs, totally involved all the time, just cost 4,100, 2,900. Lefty bat in this lineup is an absolute priority. I mean, other guys are higher priorities, but as like a building block guy who's always hitting third in this lineup, he's a priority in amongst those guys, and he helps you pay for those other guys. He's having a tremendous year, coming off of a tremendous year. We need to forget about the old Ryan O'Hearn. He is this guy now. Santander, under 5,000 on DraftKings. Yes, please. If you're going to Orioles, and I say yes, please, in a if you're going to Orioles sense, because they're not a priority stack today. They don't rank out great. They're facing a very good pitcher. But if you're going there, cheap Santander, 8.88 in the home run model. He's got a 270 ISO, 22 home runs, 11% barrels on the season. He's been a tremendous power hitter for years. He's an underappreciated bat globally. Like, nobody likes Anthony Santander like we do around here, I don't think. He does not get talked about enough for his power upside. He's not high priced enough either. FanDuel's close to correct, 35. You could have gotten to 38, even against Gilbert. Pitcher's Park, good pitcher. I mean, there's big downside tonight, but that is an incorrect price on DraftKings. Histon Kjerstad for 3,100. That is an incorrect price on DraftKings. I know he's a rookie. I know he's 41 plate appearances into the year. He's already got 2 home runs, 235 ISO. Was absolutely destroying AAA. If you combine the seasons, he'd be one of the leaders on this team. He's ridiculous for 3,100, 2,400 on FanDuel. Tremendous advantage there if you're going to this team. Jordan Westburg for 5,000, honestly, a little bit cheap. 3,300, a little bit cheap on FanDuel as well. 13 home runs at 221 ISO, 136 WRC plus. Colton Cowser for 35.27. The discounts just don't stop coming with this team. 12 home runs for him, a 215 ISO, 114 WRC plus. All the premium contact that money can buy. It's just fantastic options up and down this lineup. That's what part of the challenge about saying, like, yeah, they're facing a really good pitcher, pitcher's park and everything. They could still succeed just on their individual man-for-man talent. Cedric Mullins, 3,900, 2,800. At least you're buying counting stats. 9 homers, 16 steals. Pretty limited season so far, but he's a talented guy, and there are definitely some numbers to support a little bit of DFS upside. Jorge Mateo, same thing. You know, limited guy, but counting stat upside. DFS, any given slate kind of upside with an interesting skill set for what we need. On the Mariners side, even with the matchup against the worst of these two pitchers, I just really don't like this Mariners team this year. I've had some real issues getting to them, and I feel like we've been well rewarded for not going to them. I feel like we've been well rewarded for targeting them with pitching. J.P. Crawford off the top, just 309 on base this year, 211, 309, 354, creating runs 4% worse than average, just 7 home runs. He's actually stolen 4 bases. Somebody asked about that at the beginning of the season, and off the top of my head, I was like, yeah, I think he stole a bunch of bases last year because he got on at a 380 clip. Last year, he only stole 2 bases in 638 plate appearances. So he's doing that this year, but he's not doing anything that he used to do. Not a great option off the top. Ty France, 3,300, 2,700. Honestly, they could, at this point, just replace him with Tyler Locklear, their high-end prospect. 106 WRC plus for France, 8 home runs. Pretty limited season so far from him. Luke Raley, 9 home runs, 6 stolen bases. We're quality is like right here with these two guys, and one of those two guys is at the Mendoza line this season. Raley has a 186 ISO. He has a 115 WRC plus. He had a good season last year, 19 home runs, 14 steals. You get good counting stat upside for very cheap pricing against a medium grade pitcher and then the bullpen, but Raley can't do it on his own. Cal Raleigh, the only guy in the lineup above the magic number for home run upside. He's hit 14 this season. Just a 185 ISO though, 6 points below average for run creation. Great contact profile, but a very, very high strikeout rate at 32.4%. Matching 32.4% from Jorge Polanco in the next spot, 3,300, 2,700. He's cheap, but he's deservingly cheap. 193, 284, 293, a 72 WRC plus this year. Dominic Canzone mashes the ball when he makes contact. 10.7% barrels this year, 12.1% last year. 7 home runs and a 198 ISO and just 141 plate appearances is good. But 214, 291, 413, just a 101 WRC plus is pretty limiting. 30+% strikeouts, pretty limiting. Julio, just having a terrible year. 244, 294, 324, 7 homers, 17 steals, and 82 WRC plus. If he's up lineup, he's a little bit better off. 5,000 is cheap for what the talent has been over the last 2 seasons. But for a half a year this year, he's been lost. 2,900 on FanDuel, effectively discounted, more so than on DK. Mitch Haniger, Josh Rojas at the bottom of the lineup, skippable, mix and match quality. Haniger's got more power. Rojas has been providing a better average, better on base, and is a positive run creator this year. But pretty limited options down lineup for this Mariners team. Logan Gilbert way up top. Orioles bats, Dean Kramer on DraftKings, and then and only then the Mariners bats. Larry's saying there's a weird Detroit lineup in our lives. I don't see it yet. It's an interesting Detroit lineup. I'll give it that. Matt Vierling in the leadoff spot. I don't dislike that. Colt Keith moving to 2. I like quite a bit. Riley Green 3. So I like that 3-man trio off the top. It actually provides better correlated scoring than what we originally had. Those 3 guys in a direct line now is not bad. Then Carson Kelly hitting cleanup makes him significantly more interesting. We had him at the bottom of the lineup when we looked at it. So that's kind of interesting as a cleanup bat there. Wensil Perez hitting 5th. Malloy 6 now with his power upside, and then you get into McKinstry or Urshela, and then Keel Badu not completely uninteresting in the 9 spot. I think that's a better version of the Tigers lineup than what we looked at, but I'm still much more inclined to just go to that Twins pitcher, which brings us back to the board. Rounding things out, as Michael Knack says, smash that like button for me. Do me a favor. I really appreciate it. Appreciate everybody who's still here hanging out. 2 hours and change into the show, nearly 3 hours into the show, 6:08. We'll get through this real quick, and then we'll get the site updated because there's a lot of lineups and projections came out. Chris Sale, easily the top pitcher on the board. If you can afford it, fire away as many shares as you can grab. Love, love, love the spot for Chris Sale, and he's been absolutely tremendous this year. For a little bit less, you can get to Zach Wheeler in a similarly good spot against the Cubs. No reason to believe that Zach Wheeler can't easily pay off those prices, and slate-breaking top-end ability from Zach Wheeler. Logan Gilbert, love him against the Orioles. Even against the Orioles, he's just way too talented. 10-2, 9-4. You are paying a high price for a spot against one of the best lineups in baseball. So there's that impact of it, but it just worked out last night with a similarly talented pitcher. I expect it'll work out again for Seattle. That pitching staff is just too good. Yusei Kikuchi, and then on the other side of that game, Ronel Blanco, the Houston-Toronto game. As discussed, that one falls so firmly into the all 4 sides look very much the same, and all 4 sides might land in just 3-4 runs, 4 or 5 runs, no DFS impact. But at the same time, either one of these pitchers could absolutely succeed against those talented, low strikeout, somewhat underperforming lineups. My preference is to pay a cheap price for Yusei Kikuchi against Houston, even though I don't love targeting that low strikeout Houston team. I think that Blanco is too high priced. 10-3, 9,000. You're really not seeing any discount for the fact that there's a little bit of Fugazi kind of results coming from Ronel Blanco right now. Shota Imanaga, still, even with the diminished Phillies lineup, it's a challenging lineup to get through, but it's a greatly diminished Phillies lineup, and he is very talented. 97 on FanDuel, I think, is a fair enough price. 8,700 for him on DraftKings is downright cheap. Carlos Rodon, not my favorite option against the Reds. He could easily succeed there. There is strikeout upside in that Reds lineup, even with the lower end strikeout lineup that they put out today. But Yankee Stadium, all the different things working against Rodon, a more limited version of Carlos Rodon than we've seen in years past. I just think there's better spots on the board. Wouldn't shock me if he had a good game, though. Dean Kramer, again, I just think we're going to limit that a little bit on innings. It'll come down slightly. Playable still on DraftKings probably for 71, less so on FanDuel at 86. John Gray, limited pitcher, limited results, but very, very cheap against a low strikeout, but otherwise somewhat gettable San Diego lineup. Another pitcher where it wouldn't shock me. I don't think he's going to go out and put up a 60-point FanDuel day and break the slate, but I wouldn't be surprised if he had an effective enough kind of $6,500 SP2 day on DraftKings. Pepio. Capable, little bit high priced at 89 on FanDuel, but a lot of strikeout stuff. Just going up against a low strikeout, high quality Royals lineup. 7,100 is a different story on DraftKings. He's easily playable there. It's the exact same situation for Davis Daniel. He's too high priced on FanDuel based off that one start, despite a really gettable opponent in Oakland. I just don't think he's a great fit at 9,100 on FanDuel. 75 on DraftKings, way more playable, correctly priced. Gavin Stone also falls into that bucket with the caveat that he's also a little bit high priced on DraftKings at 85, just for where he falls into the board with everybody around him at lower prices and similar projections. 98 feels really high price for him on FanDuel. Jordan Hicks can give you quality at 78, 73 against Atlanta. That Braves team has really, really been scuffling. He's got good ability to limit home run upside. Festa, my top value pitcher of the day, 6,100 on FanDuel. I think I'm going to use it. 6,700 on DraftKings. Could totally go bust. Was not good in his first start, but a lot of quality in that arm. Top 100 prospect, pretty universally. Great matchup against Detroit that we just saw a lower-end rookie pitcher succeed in his debut last week. So, killer spot for Festa. Love backing him up with a twin stack and all the upside we're seeing in that offense against Cater Montero on the other side. Joey Estes, limited but playable, 6,800, 6,000, going up against a very limited and pretty bad Angels lineup. Just know that you're throwing a value dart from the bargain bin that's probably not going to work out more often than not. Michael Wacha against the Rays, 8,500, another kind of awkward price fit, but has pitched really well in terms of limiting offense, limiting opportunities against. Just not your highest strikeout guy, but there are strikeouts for him to find in that Rays lineup, so especially at 7,000 on DraftKings, he's in that mix. Andrew Abbott probably going to get hit a little bit at least by the Yankees, like Aaron Judge and maybe some of those other guys. Juan Soto certainly, and then whoever else is wearing Yankee uniforms tonight. I don't love the spot for Abbott, but I could see him succeeding. We've seen, medium strength lefties with good strikeout stuff succeed against this Yankees team for the last few years. So not off the board, but not an ideal spot. Montero, Colin Ray, Adam Mazur, Christian Mena, and Dakota Hudson are all off the board on both sites for me. That said, if you're going to a $4,000 pitcher on DraftKings, it is Montero over Christian Mena. Take the shot against Minnesota, not against the Dodgers. Even with as good as Minnesota's been and all the power that they're showing in the model today, that's just the way I would play it. He's the better of the two pitchers in terms of minor league results and strikeout stuff. Colin says the Oakland lineup just dropped. I was interested in that one. I don't actually see it yet on Underdog. Oh, it's a ways down, actually. It dropped a while ago. Blade, Andujar, Rooker, Langoliers, Soderstrom, Geloff, Butler, Harris, Schumann. That's the lineup that we looked at. We had it right. Home run board real quick before we get out of here. Aaron Judge, top of the board. No stopping him. Not against a lefty anyway. Trevor Larnach, number 2. You're going to see some of the twins pop up here. There's Larnach. There's Carlos Santana. There's Carlos Correa. There's Byron Buxton. There's Jose Miranda. There's Max Kepler. That is 6 guys above the magic number for home run upside. Can we see it? Can we see the success potential for the Twins here? They're firmly one of the top stacks of the day. I love the power opportunity. We just need them to sequence a little bit and create runs, which they've been doing very well this year. Love the Twins today. Jordan Alvarez, great bat from Houston. If anybody's going to screw up the day for Toronto pitching, he is easily on that list. Altuve, not far off the magic number. And I'm sure Bregman, not far behind either against Kikuchi. So a lot of upside there. But you can see similar for Toronto on the other side. Vladdy and Varsho right there. I'm sure Springer and whatnot are not far behind. Dodgers bats, the individuals anyway, showing some quality upside. Ohtani, never a bad one-off, especially against a low-end rookie pitcher. Kind of like the Dodger spot. They're pretty obvious, though. The Rangers, with all the run quality that they're showing, not bad. Adolis Garcia right there. Semien, not far off the mark. I'm sure some of those other guys are mixed in down a little bit further down. Good amount of power showing today. More power than we've seen on the board the last couple of days. So it's going to be a really interesting, fun kind of slate. A lot of pitching to work with. A lot of bats to work with. Top to bottom, up and down. I think we covered everything we possibly could. But if you come up with anything, pop into the Discord, ask me a question. I'll be around for the next hour or so till lock. With that in mind, guys, good luck out there tonight. Somebody go win something. See you tomorrow.